Julian gave our honeymoon ocean suite to another woman while the hotel staff, 2 bellmen, and half the marble lobby watched me learn it from a front desk clerk. Then he looked at my wedding ring, looked at Vanessa Crow's gold keycard, and said, "Marriage is just paper, Evelyn, don't make a scene over a room." I did not scream, I did not slap him, I did not beg him to remember the vows he had made 3 days earlier under white roses and camera flashes. I only took off my ring. The lobby went quiet enough for me to hear the faint chime of the elevator opening behind him. Vanessa stepped out in a silk dress the color of sea foam, barefoot inside my honeymoon slippers, smiling like she had already practiced being Mrs. Veil in front of a mirror. Julian mistook my silence for surrender. He always did. I placed the ring inside the inner pocket of my purse, angled my phone toward the screen on the front desk, and took one clean photo of the reservation record before the clerk could minimize it. Ocean Suite, guest name, Vanessa Crow, payment, Veilheart honeymoon account, special note, spousal experience package. Then I pressed record. Julian leaned close and lowered his voice. "You signed up for a partnership, not some fairy tale. Vanessa understands what this family needs." That was the moment my marriage became evidence. Before dawn, I checked out alone. The first thing I noticed was the gold lettering behind the front desk. Vail Coastal Resorts. My new last name was shining on the wall in brushed metal, lit from beneath by soft white lights, polished so brightly that it reflected the lobby orchids, the marble floors, and my own face back at me. I looked like a bride who had slept badly on a plane. I looked like a woman still trying to believe the wedding had been real. My husband stood 3 feet away, one hand in the pocket of his linen trousers, his phone in the other. Julian Veil had not looked at me once since we entered the lobby. He had smiled at the general manager, accepted 2 flutes of champagne, and kissed the air beside the cheek of a woman from guest relations who called him Mr. Veil in a voice soft enough to be rehearsed. When the clerk asked for my passport, I opened my handbag and pulled it out with hands that still bore traces of pale pink polish from the wedding salon. My ring flashed under the lobby lights. "Welcome, Mrs. Veil," the clerk said. I should have felt something warm when she said it. I had spent months teaching myself not to flinch at the name, Evelyn Veil, wife, partner, family. Julian's family had used the word family so often that it had become a sound with no weight. His mother had said it while choosing my wedding flowers. His father had said it when asking me to help stabilize one of their loans. Julian had said it while signing the prenup, smiling as though love could make paperwork gentle. The clerk typed quickly, then stopped. Her smile stayed on her face, but her eyes moved to the screen again. "I'm sorry," she said. "Could you confirm the reservation name?" "Veil," Julian said without looking up from his phone. "Ocean Suite, honeymoon package." "Yes, sir." The clerk swallowed. "The Ocean Suite is checked in under MS, Vanessa Crow." For a few seconds, the lobby did not move. A bellman crossed behind me with a leather duffel bag. Somewhere near the bar, ice clicked into a glass. A child laughed near the fountain, then was shushed by a parent. I looked at Julian. He finally looked back. There was no shock on his face, no confusion, no quick apology, just irritation, as if the clerk had said the wrong thing too loudly. "Give my wife the garden room," he said. The clerk blinked. "Sir, the garden room," Julian repeated. "South wing. It's already arranged." I heard myself ask, "The garden room?" Julian's jaw tightened. "Evelyn," one word, a warning. I turned back to the clerk. "May I see the reservation, Mrs. Veil? I'm not sure I can show details from another guest's booking. I paid for the honeymoon account," I said. My voice was calm enough that I almost did not recognize it. "The account is under Veilheart. My name is on it." Julian stepped closer. "Don't do this at the desk." "Do what?" "Turn a room assignment into drama." "Room assignment." The phrase landed between us like a dirty glass dropped onto marble. 3 days earlier, he had held both my hands under a canopy of white roses and said, "There is no life I want without you in it." Now he was annoyed that I expected to sleep beside him on our honeymoon. The clerk's fingers hovered above the keyboard. Her name tag read Lena Ortiz. She looked young enough to still believe rich people were frightening by nature and not by choice. "Mrs. Veil," she said carefully, turning the monitor a few inches. "This is the reservation summary." Julian snapped. "Lena." She froze. He knew her name. Of course he did. His family owned part of the resort group, everyone knew him, but the screen was already angled enough I saw the line. Before he reached for the monitor, Ocean Suite, guest, Vanessa Crow, payment, Veilheart honeymoon account, special requests, champagne, private terrace dinner, silk robe set, spousal experience package. My throat closed around the last phrase, spousal experience package. Julian's hand came down on the counter. That's enough. I lifted my phone as if checking a message and took one picture. The tiny shutter sound was drowned by a fresh burst of laughter from the bar, then the elevator chimed. Vanessa Crow stepped out barefoot in hotel slippers, carrying a champagne flute like she had been born in silk and candlelight. She wore a white slip dress under a loose resort robe, the belt tied carelessly at her waist. Her hair fell in shining waves over one shoulder. A gold keycard hung between two fingers. For one insane second, I noticed the slippers. They had embroidered initials on them, EV, my initials. Vanessa followed my gaze and smiled. "Oh," she said, "I wondered if these were yours." Julian's face hardened. "Vanessa, go back upstairs." She did not move. "I was just coming to ask if we still had dinner at 8. The terrace menu needs confirmation." I asked. Her eyes widened with false innocence. "Julian didn't tell you." Julian turned on me, not on her. "Evelyn, lower your voice." I had not raised it. A couple near the concierge desk had turned their heads. One of the bellmen was staring at the floor with the intense focus of someone trying not to be a witness. I looked at my husband. "You booked her the Ocean Suite." His mouth tightened. "She is here for work. She is wearing my slippers." Vanessa laughed softly. "They were in the suite. My honeymoon suite, Evelyn," Julian said. And now the warning had sharpened. "Marriage is just paper. Don't make a scene over a room." There it was, not a slip, not a moment of panic, not a sentence he could take back and call stress. "Marriage is just paper." The lobby swallowed the words and held them. Lena looked down at the counter. The bellman's shoulders stiffened. Vanessa's smile brightened, then softened into pity, as if I had embarrassed myself by expecting to matter. I remembered the wedding photographer asking Julian to kiss my forehead. I remembered his mother crying into a lace handkerchief and whispering, "You are one of us now." I remembered signing my name beside his on a honeymoon account that held checks from my family friends, gifts from my mother's old colleagues, and a transfer I had made myself because Julian said the investors would like seeing the new Veilheart partnership celebrated properly. I remembered believing him. I reached for my left hand. Julian noticed the movement. His eyes dropped to my ring. "Don't be childish," he said. I twisted the band once. It resisted at the knuckle. My finger was still a little swollen from the flight. I twisted again, slowly, until the diamond slid free. Vanessa stopped smiling. Julian's expression changed, but not enough to be fear. Not yet. I placed the ring inside the inner pocket of my purse and zipped it shut. "I'll take the garden room," I said to Lena. Julian exhaled through his nose as if I had finally decided to behave. "Good." I turned to him. "Under my name, separate folio. I want my charges separated from the Veilheart honeymoon account." Now he looked at me properly. "Evelyn." "Separate folio," I repeated. Lena nodded quickly. "Of course." Vanessa's fingers tightened around the keycard. "Is that necessary?" I looked at her. "You're in my suite, wearing my slippers, drinking champagne paid for by my wedding account. I think we passed necessary 5 minutes ago." Her cheeks flushed. Julian stepped close enough that his cologne cut through the smell of orchids and sea air. "Do not humiliate me in my own hotel." The absurdity almost made me laugh. His own hotel, his family name on the wall, my money in the account, another woman in the suite, and somehow I was the humiliation. I leaned slightly toward him, close enough that only he could hear my next words. "You just told your wife that marriage is paper in front of hotel staff and your mistress. I am not the one humiliating you." His eyes flashed. "Vanessa is not my mistress." "Then you should have no trouble explaining the spousal experience package." His jaw worked once. Vanessa said, "Julian, I don't need this." No, she did not need it. She had the suite, the terrace, the robe, the champagne, the man. I had the paper and, because Julian had underestimated me, I also had the picture. Lena handed me a key card. With both hands, "Garden Room 214, Mrs. Vale, MS. Hart." I said. A tiny silence followed. Julian's face went still. Excuse me, he said. I took the card. For the folio. Use heart. Lena nodded again. Yes, MS, heart. The first time I heard my old name after the wedding, I felt something inside me unlock. It was not joy, it was not relief, it was the small, clean click of a door opening in a burning house. Julian followed me away from the desk. Evelyn, stop walking. I kept walking. The garden room was in the south wing, down a corridor that smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and damp carpet. It did not face the ocean, it faced a courtyard with trimmed hedges and a maintenance gate. The bed had a folded towel shaped like a swan, which felt like an insult the room had not meant to make. Julian entered behind me without asking. The door closed with a soft click. Have you lost your mind? He said. I set my suitcase on the luggage rack. Apparently I lost the ocean suite. He dragged a hand through his hair. Vanessa's presence here is complicated. Use simpler words. She helped secure the Westbridge coverage. She understands how to position the launch. The resort opening matters. My father has investors flying in next month. The optics of this trip matter. The optics of your ex-girlfriend in my honeymoon suite. She is not my ex-girlfriend. She was at your apartment the week before our engagement. His eyes narrowed. You went through my messages. I turned around. You left them on my kitchen counter while asking me to review your father's loan documents. That was different, because I was useful then. He looked away. There are moments when a marriage dies loudly. A scream, a slammed door, a confession in a restaurant, a lipstick stain, a hotel room. Mine died in the pause after that question. Julian sat on the edge of the bed as if this were a negotiation. Listen to me. Vanessa knows the luxury travel press. She needs to experience the top suite to write the private preview. You and I can sleep anywhere. We are married. I stared at him. That sentence is supposed to make me feel better. It is supposed to make you act like an adult. I am acting like an adult. I am asking why my husband booked another woman into the honeymoon suite paid for by my account. Our account. No, mine funded it. Yours spent it. His face hardened. Be careful. With what? With making everything about money. I laughed once. It came out too quiet. You put another woman in a $10,000 a night suite and told me marriage was paper. Now you're worried I'll make it about money. Julian stood. You know what your problem is. You turn every insecurity into a moral trial. Vanessa doesn't do that. She understands pressure, then go sleep under pressure. His eyes changed. Do not push me tonight, he said. I reached into my handbag, took out my phone, and held it up. The recording screen glowed between us. The red timer had been running since the lobby. Julian looked at it for the first time that day. Fear touched his face only briefly. He buried it fast. You recorded me. You spoke. You cannot record private conversations without consent. We're in a hotel room in a one-party consent state for recording. According to the legal memo your own family counsel sent me before the wedding. I tilted my head. Remember, you wanted me careful around investors. His mouth opened, then closed. I stopped the recording and saved it under a name that made my hand steady. Honeymoon lobby and garden room. Julian marriage paper. Julian watched me. Delete it. No, Evelyn, no. He took one step toward me. I did not step back. The silence stretched so thin I could hear the air conditioner hum. Then his phone rang. He looked down. The name on the screen was Vanessa. He did not answer immediately, and that hesitation told me more than any confession could have. Go, I said. His gaze lifted. This is not over. No, I said, it is not. He left. I locked the door behind him. Then I slid the chain into place. Then I placed a chair under the handle, not because I thought he would force his way in, but because my body did not yet believe my mind was done trusting him. My suitcase sat open on the rack. The white lingerie my sister-in-law had insisted I pack lay on top, wrapped in tissue. I lifted it, folded it once, and placed it at the bottom beneath jeans and a sweatshirt. Then I sat on the bed and sent the recording to myself. Email. Cloud folder. Encrypted drive. I sent the photo of the reservation screen. I wrote down Lena's full name from memory. I requested a copy of my separate folio. I opened the banking app and changed the honeymoon account alerts to my phone only at 1:17 a.m. Julian texted. Julian, don't do anything stupid at 1:19. Vanessa posted a photo to a private story she had forgotten I could still see because she had added me during wedding week: a moonlit terrace, 2 champagne glasses, a white robe sleeve on the edge of the frame. The caption read, "Some views are worth the wait." I took a screenshot at 1:42. I called Mara Quinn. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice rough with sleep. "Someone better be dead." "My marriage," I said. She was quiet for half a second, then fully awake. "Where are you?" "Vale Coastal Resort, South Wing, Garden Room 214, Julian, with Vanessa Crow, in the Ocean Suite." Mara did not curse often. When she did it with legal precision. "Tell me you have evidence." "I have a photo, a recording, her post, the folio request, and a hotel employee named Lena who saw the booking." "Good girl," she said softly, then caught herself. "Sorry, not good girl, good client." I smiled for the first time since landing. It hurt. "What do I do now?" I asked. "You sleep if you can. You do not confront him again. You do not sign anything. You do not let him isolate you. At sunrise, you check out." I was thinking before sunrise. Even better. I looked toward the dark window. Beyond the courtyard, somewhere out of sight, the ocean hit the shore. I had imagined hearing that sound from a terrace beside my husband. Instead, I listened to it alone in a room facing a maintenance gate. Mara's voice softened. "Evelyn, listen to me. He will try to make this about jealousy. Do not let him. This is about records, money, access, and public humiliation. Preserve everything." "I know. Do you?" I looked at the indentation on my finger where the ring had been. "Yes," I said, "I do now." At 4:36 a.m., I zipped my suitcase. At 4:41, I removed my wedding dress garment bag from the closet. I had brought it because Patricia Vale had insisted the resort photographer might want post-wedding beach portraits. I folded the bottom carefully over my arm and did not let the train touch the floor. At 4:48, I opened the door. The corridor was empty. At 4:55, I reached the lobby. Lena was there, hair pulled into a tighter bun, eyes tired. She saw the suitcase and understood immediately. "Checking out?" she asked quietly. "Yes." Her fingers moved across the keyboard. Separate folio under heart, room charge only, no incidentals. "Can you print it?" She hesitated. "Yes." "And the checkout timestamp?" Another hesitation. "Yes." The printer hummed. The paper slid out warm. I folded it into my bag. Then Lena lowered her voice. "MS. Heart." I looked up. The Ocean Suite folio was modified twice yesterday before arrival, first under Mr. and Mrs. Vale, then under Mr. Vale and guest, then under MS. Crow alone. Her eyes flicked toward the back office. "I can't print that for you, I understand, but if someone sent a formal preservation letter quickly, the logs would still exist." I held her gaze. "Thank you." She nodded once. The automatic doors opened to the driveway. Dawn had not broken, but the sky had begun to lose its black edge. A taxi waited under the portico, engine running. The driver stepped out to take my bag. As I slid into the back seat, my phone buzzed. "Julian, where are you?" Another message came before I could lock the screen. "Julian, Evelyn, don't embarrass both of us." I looked through the rear window at the hotel. High above the lobby, the Ocean Suite terrace curved toward the sea. A pale curtain moved in the breeze. I typed back one sentence. "You already did." Then I turned off shared location, placed my phone face down, and left my honeymoon before dawn. The taxi smelled like old leather, black coffee, and the coconut air freshener swinging from the rearview mirror. I sat in the back with my wedding dress across my lap, because I could not bear to put it in the trunk beside my suitcase. The driver asked no questions. For that alone, I wanted to tip him the entire contents of my wallet. The resort disappeared behind a row of palms. The Vale Coastal Resort sign flashed once in the rear window, then slipped out of sight. My phone vibrated against my thigh every few seconds. Julian called first, then Julian again, then Patricia Vale, then a number I recognized as Martin's assistant, then Vanessa. That one almost made me laugh. I did not answer any of them. Instead, I opened my banking app with my thumbprint. The honeymoon account sat under a cheerful label I had created 2 weeks earlier, Vale Heart Celebration. It contained wedding gift deposits, refunds from overpaid vendors, and a transfer from my own personal account to cover what Julian had called upfront experience costs. He had kissed my shoulder while I approved it, saying, "You're saving me from one more conversation with my father," I had thought. Marriage meant making things easier for each other. Now I stared at the account activity: private terrace dinner, ocean suite robe set, premium champagne, boutique purchase, spa credit, after-hours dining, personalized honeymoon turndown, all charged while I sat in the garden room. I selected Manage Access. Julian Vale, authorized user. I pressed remove. The app asked if I was sure. I pressed confirm. A small banner appeared. Access revoked. There was no thunder, no music, no dramatic sign from the universe, just a clean line of text on a screen while a taxi carried me down a dark island road. But my hands stopped shaking. I took screenshots of the account activity, each one saved to the folder Mara had told me to create. The folder name was not poetic. Julian Evidence at the airport. The departure hall was half asleep. Cleaning machines moved slowly over polished floors. A coffee stand had just opened, and the woman behind the counter was arranging muffins with the solemn focus of someone who knew travelers made bad decisions before sunrise. I bought black coffee and a bottle of water. My stomach turned at the smell of food. The airline desk opened at 5:30. I booked the first flight to New York with my own card, under Evelyn Hart. The agent glanced at my wedding dress, then at my bare left hand. Her expression softened, but she said only, "Window or aisle, aisle," while she printed the boarding pass. Julian called again this time. I let it ring long enough to feel the choice, then I declined. A message arrived immediately. "Julian, this is insane. Come back before anyone notices, not before I'm sorry, not before we talk, not before I fix this, before anyone notices." I took a screenshot. Patricia's message came next. "Patricia, Evelyn, darling, Julian says there has been a misunderstanding. Honeymoons are emotional. Do not punish a family over a little discomfort, a little discomfort." I looked down at the wedding dress draped over my arm. The lace at the hem had caught on the zipper of my carry-on and pulled a thread loose. I smoothed it with my thumb and imagined Patricia's face if she saw it. She would care more about the damaged lace than the reason I had carried it through an airport at dawn. Mara called as I reached security. "I'm sending a preservation letter to the resort within the hour," she said. "Do you have Lena's last name? Ortiz? Good. Any printouts? Separate folio, checkout timestamp, account charges. Scan them when you board." "I will." "Has he threatened you?" "Not directly." "What does that mean?" "He told me not to embarrass both of us." Mara made a sound that belonged in a courtroom. Classic. "He harms you, then makes the consequences your breach of etiquette." I removed his access to the honeymoon account. A pause, then she said, "I love this version of you. This version of me is nauseous and wearing yesterday's mascara. Still, efficient." I almost smiled. Security took too long. A man ahead of me argued about a jar of local honey. A teenager forgot his laptop in his backpack. I stood barefoot on a grey mat and watched my wedding dress disappear into the scanner like evidence in a trial I had not known I was preparing for. When I collected my things, a text from Julian waited. "Julian, Vanessa says you were rude to her in the lobby. She was trying to help." I stared at it. Coffee cooling in my hand. "Vanessa says 3 days married, and my husband had already made another woman the narrator." I typed nothing. At gate 6, I found a seat near an outlet and scanned every document, folio, checkout receipt, screenshots, Vanessa's terrace post, Julian's texts, the picture of the reservation screen, slightly angled but clear enough to show her name and the payment account. Then I opened my email and saw the bank notification. Subject: attempted authorization change. Hart Legacy Trust distribution. My chest went cold. I opened it at 5:12 a.m. Someone had attempted to accelerate a scheduled marital partnership distribution tied to my trust. The request had been submitted through Vale Coastal Holdings using a digital packet that included my married name, Mrs. Evelyn Vale. The request had been flagged because it lacked my secondary authentication. I read the message 3 times before the words arranged themselves into meaning. Julian had not only put Vanessa in my suite, someone had tried to use the honeymoon window, when I was supposed to be relaxed, distracted, and far from my lawyer, to push through money, my mother's money. My mother had died with her hand around mine and a legal pad on the bedside table. She had not trusted grief to make good financial decisions, so she had built guardrails into everything: trust distributions, brand licensing approvals, dual authentication for marital transfers, cooling periods, review triggers. She had been gentle in life and ruthless in paperwork. I had once been embarrassed by it. Now I whispered, "Thank you, Mom." The boarding announcement crackled overhead. My phone rang again. "Julian," I answered for 1 second. Neither of us spoke. Airport noise filled the space between us. Rolling bags, a child whining, the gate agent calling priority passengers. "Where are you?" Julian asked. "At the airport." His breath changed. "You can't be serious." "I am boarding, Evelyn. Get out of that line." "No, this is a honeymoon. People argue on honeymoons. Do they usually give the honeymoon suite to their ex?" "She is not my ex." "Fine, your guest in my slippers." A sharp silence, then he lowered his voice. "Listen to me carefully. You do not want to start this marriage with threats." "I didn't. You recorded me, you spoke, you revoked my account access, you spent wedding money on another woman. That account is for us. There is no us in a private terrace dinner I wasn't invited to." "God, Evelyn." His voice shifted into disgust. "This is exactly what I mean. You make everything small and personal." "It is personal. I am your wife. You are acting like a jealous girlfriend." I looked at the boarding pass in my hand. "Evelyn Hart, seat 7C. "No," I said, "I am acting like a person who understands documents." That stopped him. "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means I saw the attempted trust authorization." Another silence, longer. When Julian spoke again, his tone had changed, softer. "Careful, that was routine. At 5:12 in the morning, my father's finance team moves on tight windows. You know the Westbridge deadline. I know my trust requires my authorization. And you would have given it if you hadn't decided to spiral over Vanessa." The word spiral landed exactly where he aimed it. For years, men like Julian had learned to make women defend their sanity instead of their facts. My old self might have taken the bait. My old self might have said, "I am not spiraling. I am not crazy. I am not jealous." She might have begged him to see the difference. I did not. "I'm hanging up now," I said. "Evelyn, if you get on that plane, you will make this much harder to fix. It is not my job to make your betrayal easy to repair." His voice hardened. "You will come home eventually." I looked toward the jet bridge. "No," I said, "I will come back to New York. Home is under review." Then I ended the call. My hands were cold, but they were steady on the plane. I placed the wedding dress in the overhead bin as carefully as if it still belonged to a happy woman. A man across the aisle offered to help. I thanked him and did it myself. As the aircraft pushed back, I looked out the window at the strip of pink appearing over the runway. Dawn had finally arrived. Julian sent one more text before airplane mode. "Julian, you are making a mistake you won't be able to undo." I did not answer. I switched my phone off and leaned back as the plane gathered speed. For the first time since the lobby, I let myself feel the wound, not all of it, just enough. I had loved him. That was the part one could not make efficient. I had loved the way he read in bed with one ankle crossed over the other. I had loved his laugh when he forgot to be polished. I had loved the hand he placed at my lower back in crowds, the way he ordered coffee for me when I was too tired to speak, the way he had cried at my mother's memorial and said, "You're not alone anymore." Maybe that had been true for a while. Maybe it had never been true. The plane lifted. Below, the island shrank into blue water and white sand. Somewhere in that postcard view, Vanessa was waking in the ocean suite. Maybe Julian was beside her. Maybe he was pacing. Maybe he was already rewriting the story. Let him. I had the first draft in his own voice. By the time we landed in New York, Mara had sent me 3 emails. The first was a copy of the preservation letter to the resort, demanding that all reservation logs, surveillance footage, staff communications, folios, keycard access records, and billing notes related to the Veilheart honeymoon account be retained. The second was a request for documents from the bank. The third had no greeting. Just one sentence. "Do not go to the marital home alone." I stood near baggage claim, reading it twice. Then I looked up and saw my reflection in the dark window beyond the carousel. Same face, same wrinkled dress from the flight, same bare finger. But something had changed in my posture. Not confidence, not yet recognition. I recognized the woman looking back. She was tired, she was hurt, She was not helpless. I called a car to take me to my old apartment, the one Julian had called unnecessary after the wedding. Why? Keep it, he had said while we packed the first boxes. You'll be with me now. I had almost given it up. My mother's old assistant, Grace, had talked me out of it. Keep one door with your own lock, she told me. Love is sweeter when you are not trapped inside it. At the time, I thought it was grief talking. Now I unlocked that door with a key Julian did not have. The apartment smelled faintly of cedar and closed windows. White sheets covered the sofa. A stack of unopened mail waited on the console. The rooms were smaller than the marital home, but mine in a way the mansion had never been. I set my suitcase down. My phone turned on with a flood of messages. Julian. Call me Julian. My mother is worried. Julian. You are embarrassing yourself. Julian. We can still contain this. Vanessa. I never meant to hurt you. Patricia. A wife does not run away. Martin. We should discuss the financial implications of your emotional reaction. Unknown number. Mrs. Vale. This is Daniel from Vale Legal. Please confirm availability to sign the attached addendum. I opened the attachment. The title made my mouth go dry. Marital Cooperation and Confidentiality Agreement. Even before Mara reviewed it, I knew what it was. A gag, a leash, a pretty document asking me to restore financial authorization, waive claims related to private marital misunderstandings, and agree not to disclose events that could harm Vale Coastal Holdings or related parties. Private marital misunderstandings. I thought of Vanessa's gold keycard. I forwarded the email to Mara and typed. They moved fast. Her reply came almost instantly. So do we. Then my banking app chimed. Hart Legacy Trust Distribution Review. Suspended pending beneficiary confirmation. I stood in my quiet apartment with my wedding dress still over my arm and understood the first real consequence. Julian had expected a bride too humiliated to think. Instead, he had created a beneficiary with evidence. Mara's office was on the 19th floor of a narrow building near Bryant Park, the kind of place that hid sharp lawyers behind frosted glass and modest signage. By the time I arrived, she had coffee waiting, a scanner humming, and 3 folders lined up on her conference table. She took one look at me and did not ask if I was okay. That was why I loved her. Sit, she said. Cry later if you need to. Right now we document. I sat. My wedding dress lay folded in a garment bag across the chair beside me. I had not known where else to put it. Leaving it in my apartment felt like abandoning evidence of my own foolishness. Bringing it to a lawyer's office felt dramatic. But then again, so did being replaced in my honeymoon suite by my husband's public relations consultant. Mara poured coffee into a paper cup and pushed it toward me. Drink, I might throw up. Then sip. She opened the first folder. Your prenup. I had signed that document 6 weeks before the wedding in a room full of flowers because Patricia Vale thought legal discussions looked less ugly with peonies. Julian had been charming that day. He had squeezed my hand under the table and whispered, "This is just to make everyone comfortable." At the time, I had believed the prenup existed to calm his family. Now Mara flipped to the marked pages with the expression of a woman opening a weapon case. Section 8(4), she said, Personal Asset Protection. No marital claim attaches to the Hart Legacy Trust absent direct written approval from you. Renewed per transaction. I knew that. Part. Section 9(2), Brand and Endorsement Withdrawal. If Vale Coastal Holdings or any related entity uses your name, likeness, marital status, personal brand, or family legacy in a commercial context without your active consent, you can revoke usage immediately. I leaned forward. Including investor materials, press materials, launch decks, resort campaigns, donor events, and partnership announcements. Julian's face flashed through my mind. We need the optics. The resort opening matters. Mara continued. Section 11(7), Conduct Trigger. That sounds ominous. It is beautiful. She turned the folder so I could read. Public humiliation, misrepresentation of marital status, misuse of shared funds for the benefit of a romantic or intimate third party, financial coercion, or attempts to obtain asset authorization during travel or medical incapacity trigger immediate review. I read the words twice. Attempts to obtain asset authorization during travel. My mother's fingerprints were all over that clause. She had not trusted honeymoons, Or maybe she had not trusted anyone who rushed legal papers while a woman was expected to smile. I thought that clause was excessive. I said, I remember. Mara tapped the page. You told me it made you feel cynical. It did. Good. Cynicism just bought you leverage. I stared at the signature line, Evelyn Hart, Julian Vale, both in blue ink, his signature bold and careless, mine neat because I had wanted to look steady. Mara opened the second folder, bank records. She slid a printed email toward me. The attempted trust acceleration had been initiated through Vale Coastal Holdings by Daniel Price, Vale's internal counsel. The request referenced marital partnership stabilization and time-sensitive hospitality asset support. It had been uploaded at 5:12 a.m. Island time. Did Julian know? I asked. Mara looked at me over her glasses. Do you want the comforting answer or the useful one? Useful. His name is not on the upload, but Daniel does not move trust requests tied to the chairman's son without approval from someone senior. It may be Martin, it may be Julian, it may be both. I pressed my fingers to the edge of the table. Mara softened her voice. Evelyn, I know. No, I need you to hear me. The suite is the emotional injury. The trust request is the strategic injury. Do not let them drag you into defending your hurt feelings while they raid your documents. I closed my eyes once. When I opened them, the room looked sharper. What do? We file notice with the bank confirming no authorization. We notify Vale Legal that any further attempt will be treated as financial coercion. We revoke use of your name from all current investor materials pending review, and we demand the resort preserve the Ocean Suite records. And divorce. Mara paused. Do you want to file today? The question entered the room and sat there. Divorce, 3 days married. I thought of the wedding cake still boxed somewhere in Patricia's house. The thank you notes stacked unwritten, the photographs not yet delivered, Julian's hand on my waist in the reception line, my vow catching in my throat when I said for better or worse because I had meant it. Then I thought of Vanessa in my slippers. I don't know, I said honestly, but I want him to know I can. Mara nodded. Then we prepare without filing. Preparation is not indecision, it is discipline. She opened the third folder, hotel records. My stomach tightened. The preservation letter went out. Lena Ortiz responded through a personal email, which she should not have done, but I understand why she did. What did she say? Mara slid her laptop toward me. Lena's message was short. MS. Quinn, I received your preservation request. I cannot provide confidential records directly. However, I can confirm that the booking name for the Ocean Suite was changed before arrival. I can also confirm that MS. Hart was assigned Garden Room 214 while MS. Crow occupied Ocean Suite 900. I am willing to speak if subpoenaed or if protected from retaliation. Please do not use my name without warning me. Below that, she had attached nothing. Smart woman. She's scared, I said. She should be. Vale owns a major stake in that property. Can we protect her? We can make retaliation expensive. I leaned back. Julian will say Vanessa was there for work. Let him. What if people believe him? People often believe confident liars first. Mara's eyes sharpened, then records embarrass them. My phone rang on the table. Julian. Mara glanced at it. Your call. I let it ring. It stopped, then started again. Mara folded her hands. If you answer, keep it short, put it on speaker. Tell him Mara is present. I answered on speaker. Julian's voice filled the room. Finally, Mara Quinn is present. I said. Silence. Then he laughed without humor. You brought a lawyer into our honeymoon. No, you brought Vanessa. Mara made a tiny note on her pad. Julian exhaled. Evelyn, this has gone far enough. My mother is beside herself. Vanessa is mortified. The staff are whispering. About what? About you leaving before dawn like some abandoned bride in a tabloid. I was an abandoned bride in a lobby. You weren't abandoned. You had a room. Mara's pen stopped moving. I stared at the phone. A garden room. A perfectly nice room. Then why didn't Vanessa take it? He paused. There are questions that reveal more by failing to receive answers. Julian shifted. You know why she needed the suite. No, I know why she wanted it. She needed to understand the flagship experience. By wearing my monogrammed slippers, that was a mistake. Whose? Another pause. His irritation returned. You are acting like I had sex with her in front of you. The words were meant to make my complaint sound small. Instead, they made the room colder. Mara lifted one eyebrow. I said, "Did you sleep in the ocean suite last night?" Julian did not answer quickly enough. "Evelyn, yes or no, that is not the point. It is my point. We talked late. I fell asleep on the sofa." Mara wrote something down. "The suite had a sofa," I said. "My room had a view of a maintenance gate. You chose to leave. You chose to stay." He breathed into the phone. "Angry now. I am trying to save us from a disaster." "No, you are trying to save Vale from a record." His voice dropped. "Be careful who is advising you. Lawyers profit from broken marriages." Mara smiled like Christmas had arrived. I said, "My lawyer didn't book Vanessa into my honeymoon suite." "No, but she is filling your head with hostile interpretations." Mara did not upload a trust authorization at 5:12 this morning either. This silence was different, deep, immediate. Then Julian said, "That was my father's team. Did you know? It was routine. Did you know? I knew there were timing issues. Did you know?" He snapped. "I knew we needed to move quickly before the Westbridge call." "Yes." Mara's pen flew across the page. There it was, not a full confession, not enough for every purpose, but enough to cut through later lies. I felt something settle in my chest. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "For answering." He understood too late. "Are you recording this?" Mara is taking notes. "Evelyn, I'm ending the call. You're not thinking clearly." "I have never been clearer." I hung up. Mara looked at me with open admiration. "That was excellent. I feel like I swallowed glass." Excellent things often feel terrible at first. She turned to her computer and began typing. "We are sending formal notices today. Bank, Vale Legal, Resort, Heartline Living Board, and Westbridge if necessary." "Westbridge, your name is in their investor deck. Your mother's legacy is in their deck. Your marriage is in their deck. If they used your identity to support a deal while Julian was spending the honeymoon account on another woman, Westbridge needs to know before they rely on false information." A pulse of fear moved through me. That could destroy his launch. "No," Mara said. "His choices could destroy his launch." By noon, the notices were out. By 1, my phone had become a battlefield. Patricia called 6 times. Martin twice. Daniel Price sent a stiff email accusing me of premature escalation. Vanessa sent a message that read, "Evelyn, I hope one day you understand how much pressure Julian is under." I replied to none of them. At 2:30, a courier arrived at Mara's office with a bouquet of white roses, the same roses from the wedding canopy. The card read, "Come home. Let's not let one bad night become our story." Mara read it aloud, then looked at me, manipulative but tasteful. I touched one petal. It was soft and perfect. Julian knew how to choose beautiful things. He had always known. "He still thinks this is a fight about being loved enough," I said. "What is it about?" I looked at the folders on the table. Prenup, bank, hotel. "It's about being used while being asked to smile." Mara nodded. "Good. Hold on to that sentence." At 4, I left her office with copies of everything in a sealed folder. I took a car back to my apartment. Outside, New York moved as if my marriage had not cracked open. People carried groceries. A delivery cyclist cursed at a taxi. A woman in a red coat laughed into her phone. I wanted to be one of them, a person with ordinary problems. When I reached my building, Patricia Vale was waiting in the lobby. She wore cream cashmere and pearls. Her silver hair swept into a chignon so smooth it looked carved. She stood beside the doorman with the weary dignity of a queen forced to visit a border town. "Evelyn," she said. I stopped. "Patricia." Her mouth tightened at the lack of mom. She had insisted I call her that after the engagement. "It makes us real," she had said. Nothing felt real now. "We need to talk," she said. "I'm tired." "You can be tired after you stop damaging my family." There it was, not our family, my family. I shifted the folder under my arm. "Your son did that himself." My son made an error in judgment under intense business pressure. He gave another woman my honeymoon suite. Patricia glanced at the doorman, then lowered her voice. "Must you say it like that in public? How would you prefer I say it, as a wife, with discretion?" I laughed softly. I could not help it. Her eyes hardened. "Do not become common, Evelyn. It does not suit you." There had been a time when that sentence would have cut me. Patricia's approval had been a room I kept trying to enter. I had chosen china patterns she liked. I had changed the wedding menu because she thought my mother's favorite lemon cake was too informal. I had let her invite 80 people I barely knew because veil weddings are institutional events. I had mistaken surrender for grace. I'm going upstairs, I said. She reached into her handbag and removed an envelope. Then take this. Julian wants you to review it tonight. I did not touch it. Is it the confidentiality agreement? Her face did not change, but her fingers tightened. It is a marital cooperation document. No, you haven't read it. I have. You need to think about the consequences of making enemies out of people who were ready to give you a name. There it was again, a name. I looked at the gold directory beside the elevator. My apartment number was listed under Hart, Evelyn. It had been there for 7 years. I already had a name, I said. Patricia's eyes narrowed, and for the first time, the softness dropped completely. Then why were you so eager to take ours? The doorman looked away. The words hit. I would not pretend they did not. But pain was not the same as obedience. I stepped closer to her, because I thought Julian was offering me a life. I said, not an invoice. Her lips parted. The elevator arrived behind me. I walked into it before she could recover. As the doors began to close, Patricia lifted her chin. A wife who leaves on the honeymoon teaches her husband how little she values marriage. I met her eyes through the narrowing gap. And a husband who gives the honeymoon suite to another woman teaches his wife exactly what the marriage is worth. The doors closed. My phone buzzed before I reached my floor. Mara, Patricia just emailed Daniel. Subject line, Evelyn is becoming difficult. I stared at the message as the elevator climbed. Then another came. Mara, good. Difficult women read contracts. The marital home had too many windows. That was the first thing I thought when I unlocked the front door. The next morning, the house Julian and I were supposed to share sat on a quiet street lined with old trees and expensive discretion. It had limestone steps, black shutters, and a brass knocker Patricia had chosen because mine was too modern. Sunlight poured through the foyer windows and made everything look staged. Our wedding gifts were still stacked in the library: crystal bowls, silver frames, 2 espresso machines because Julian's cousin had ignored the registry, a monogrammed cutting board with veil carved deep into the wood. I stood beneath the chandelier and listened. No footsteps, no voices, no Julian. Good. I had come with a moving company, a locksmith, and Mara's paralegal, Tessa, who wore combat boots and carried a clipboard like a weapon. We document everything you remove, Tessa said. Personal property only, no shared items unless clearly yours before marriage. I know, she softened. I'm saying it for the camera, right? The camera. Mara had insisted we record the removal. If they accuse you of stealing a spoon, I want footage of every drawer. So Tessa clipped a small body camera to her blazer, and I began extracting myself from the house where I had lived as Julian's wife for exactly 2 nights before the wedding and no nights after it. In the bedroom, my clothes hung beside his in a walk-in closet Patricia had called a little jewel box. I took my dresses, my shoes, my grandmother's pearl earrings from the velvet drawer, the cashmere throw my mother had given me the winter before she got sick. I left the framed engagement portrait in the photograph. Julian stood behind me with his arms around my waist, his chin near my temple. I looked happy in the picture, not staged happy, real happy. The sight of it made my throat tighten, so suddenly I had to sit on the bench in the closet. Tessa paused at the doorway. Need a minute? No. I stood. If I take minutes, I'll start bargaining with ghosts. She said nothing, but her eyes were kind. I removed my jewelry box from the safe. The top drawer held the wedding band Julian had chosen for himself, engraved with E and J. He had forgotten it after the ceremony because he said he disliked sleeping with rings on. Mine had never left my finger until the lobby. I left his band in the drawer in the bathroom. 2 toothbrushes stood in a marble cup. I took mine and threw it into the trash. That tiny act felt more intimate than packing lingerie. At 11:15, my phone rang. Julian. Tessa pointed to the camera. I answered on speaker. What are you doing in the house? He demanded. Removing my personal property. You brought movers. Yes. Are you insane? No, you can't just empty our home while I'm out of state. I'm not emptying it. I'm taking what belongs to me. This is childish punishment. I looked at the half-full suitcase on the bed. No, punishment would be putting your things in Vanessa's suite and telling you to be mature. Tessa pressed her lips together, trying not to smile. Julian's voice dropped. Do you think jokes make you strong? No, boundaries do. God, who are you? I almost answered honestly. I almost said, I am the woman you created when you confused love with access. Instead, I said, I am busy. You need to stop moving before you do something legally stupid. Tessa Grant from Mara Quinn's office is here documenting the removal. Would you like her to read you the inventory? A silence then. You brought a law firm into our bedroom. You brought Vanessa into our honeymoon. The sentence had become a blade by then. Short, reliable, sharp enough to stop him. He changed tactics. Evelyn, I sent the flowers, I received them, and they were beautiful, that's all. What else did you expect flowers to do? I expected you to remember that I love you. There it was, not an apology, a demand that his claimed love outrank his proven disrespect. I sat on the bed, suddenly tired. Julian, where did you sleep the night I left? His breath caught in irritation. We've been over this. No, you avoided it. I slept on the sofa, in the ocean suite. Yes, while Vanessa slept where? He said nothing. I nodded though he could not see me. That is your answer. You are obsessed with logistics. I am done being distracted by feelings while you hide behind logistics. His voice sharpened. If you keep freezing accounts and dragging lawyers into this, you will hurt people who had nothing to do with one bad night. One bad night does not explain the trust authorization. My father's team made an aggressive move. I told you, we were under pressure. You knew, I knew there were timing issues. You knew, do not make me the villain because I tried to protect my family. You made me the funding source and Vanessa the wife. He inhaled sharply. I ended the call before he could answer. Tessa made a note. That was useful. I hate that my marriage has become useful. I know. We continued packing. At noon, the locksmith arrived to change the code on the private storage room in the basement where I had kept archived Heartline living samples and several pieces from my mother's estate. Julian had access because I had trusted him. That word felt embarrassing now. Trusted. As if trust were a door I had left open with a sign reading please take what you need. While the locksmith worked, my bank sent a notification. Card ending 4402 declined. Merchant, Azure Boutique Resort. Amount, $3,870. I stared at it. That was Vanessa's authorized user card, issued under the honeymoon account for press expenses. Julian had insisted it was temporary and professional. I had been too busy finalizing wedding seating charts to question the phrasing. Another decline came. Azure Boutique Resort Spa, $1,250. Then another, Azure Jewelers, $6,400. My phone rang. Vanessa this time. I answered. Her voice came bright and brittle. Evelyn, I think there's a problem with the card. I looked at Tessa. She lifted both eyebrows. What card? I asked. The press card, Julian said. You manage that account? No. A pause. No, you don't manage it. No, there is no problem. It's being declined. That is the account working as instructed. Her voice cooled. This is embarrassing. I'm at a boutique with resort staff. Then pay with your own card. You know this is for the campaign. What campaign requires jewelry? It's styling. For whom? Do you really want to do this? I looked around the basement. Boxes of my mother's fabric samples sat beside a framed architectural rendering of the first boutique hotel she ever designed. She had built rooms that made strangers feel held. Julian had put another woman inside a room paid for by my wedding account and told me not to feel it. Yes, I said, I really do. Vanessa lowered her voice. You left, Evelyn. You don't get to control everything from New York. I control accounts with my name on them. Julian said you were dramatic. Julian says many things. Some of them are recorded. Silence. Then she said, you're threatening me. No, I'm informing you that spending records exist. You think this makes you look dignified. No, I think it makes me solvent. She hung up. Tessa wrote something down again. By 3, my personal property was loaded into the truck. I walked through the house one last time. The rooms still looked beautiful. Patricia's taste was everywhere. Cream curtains, antique mirrors, silver trays. No warmth that had not been purchased in the kitchen. A wedding card from Julian's parents leaned against a vase. To Julian and Evelyn, may your shared life strengthen the Vale legacy. I took a photo not because I wanted the card, because there it was, in ink. Not your happiness, not your love, the legacy. My email chimed as we prepared to leave. From Heartline Living Licensing Department. Subject: Authorization Review Initiated. Vale Coastal Resort Launch. I opened it per your instruction. All usage of Heartline Living name, imagery, founder story, design references, and heart. Family legacy in relation to Vale Coastal Resort launch has been suspended pending beneficiary review. A copy had gone to Vale Coastal Holdings. 30 seconds later, Julian called. I let it ring, then Martin Vale called. I let that ring too, then Patricia sent a text. Patricia, what have you done? I stood in the foyer of the house that had never become mine and looked at the word done. It sounded so final, but I was not done. I was only beginning to stop when I returned to my apartment. Boxes filled the living room. My life had been reduced to taped cardboard and garment bags, but at least every box had my name on it. At 5, Mara called. Vale's launch deck is now non-compliant without your authorization. She said, how bad? Bad enough that Martin's office sent 3 emails in 12 minutes. Westbridge asked why the heart references disappeared. I sat on the floor among the boxes. What did you tell them? Nothing substantive yet. Just that authorization is under review due to potential misuse. Julian will say I'm sabotaging him. Let him say it in writing. As if summoned, a new email arrived from Julian. Subject: Stop Evelyn. You are crossing lines you do not understand. Vale Coastal Resort launch is not a toy you get to break because your feelings are hurt. If you damage the project, my family will have no choice but to pursue remedies. I am asking you one last time to come home, restore access, and discuss this privately. Julian, I forwarded it to Mara, then I replied. Julian, I understand the lines clearly. That is why I am standing behind mine. Evelyn, I pressed send before fear could edit me. For the first time since the honeymoon lobby, I made dinner, toast, eggs, sliced tomatoes, nothing romantic, nothing impressive, food for a body that had been running on coffee and humiliation. I ate at the kitchen counter while my phone lit up from across the room. At 8:12, an unknown number called. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. MS, Heart, a woman asked. Yes. This is Lena Ortiz, from the resort. I sat straighter. Lena, are you all right? I don't know. Her voice trembled. Mr. Vale came to the front desk after you left. He asked who printed your folio. Then someone from corporate called my manager. My fork froze halfway to my plate. What did they say? That I violated guest privacy. You printed my own folio. I know. She swallowed audibly. They're saying I may have exposed confidential account information. Anger rose so fast my vision sharpened. Do you have that in writing? Yes. Forward it to Mara Quinn. I'll send you her direct email. I don't want to lose my job. I know. I have a son. The words changed the shape of my anger. It became heavier, more precise. Lena, I said, you did not create this situation. Julian did. I'm going to help protect you. A small silence, then she said, there's something else. I gripped the counter. The Ocean Suite key logs. She whispered, Mr. Vale's key entered at 12:43 a.m. and did not exit again until 6:08. I closed my eyes. The sofa, of course. Can those logs be preserved? I asked. They already are. Your lawyer's letter froze them before corporate could purge routine access data. I opened my eyes. Mara had moved faster than Julian. Thank you, I said. Lena's voice dropped. MS. Heart. Yes, there was a camera in the private elevator vestibule outside the Ocean Suite. It shows MS. Crow kissing him before they went in. For a moment, my apartment disappeared. The boxes, the toast, the city beyond the window. All I saw was the elevator door, Vanessa's silk dress, Julian's hand at her back. Then the world returned. Send nothing to me directly, I said. My voice was steady because it had to be. Tell Mara what exists, only what exists. Do not risk yourself more than necessary. I'm sorry, Lena whispered. I looked at the bare place on my finger. So am I. After we hung up, I sat very still. Then I opened the drawer beside me, removed my wedding ring from the purse pocket where I had placed it in the lobby, and set it on the counter. The diamond caught the kitchen light. Beautiful, expensive, meaningless without the promise it had been built to represent. My phone buzzed, a voice message from Julian. Against my better judgment, I played it. His voice came low and strained. Come home, Evelyn. We need to talk before the investors hear about this. Not I miss you, not I am sorry. Before the investors here, I saved the message, then I opened the evidence folder and added a new label, motive Julian chose. The restaurant where he had proposed, that was the first warning. Le Jardin sat behind an unmarked door in the West Village, all candlelight, velvet chairs, and waiters who moved like secrets. 7 months earlier, Julian had brought me there on a rainy Thursday. He had looked nervous in a way I found endearing then. After dessert, he slid a ring across the table inside a small velvet box and said, "I know your mother isn't here to see this, but I hope I can spend my life making you feel less alone." I had cried so hard the waiter pretended not to notice. Now I stood outside the same restaurant with a folder in my handbag, my phone fully charged, and Mara's instructions in my head: do not accept drinks you did not watch being poured, do not hand him your phone, do not sign anything, if Vanessa appears, do not react, if he cries, remember tears are not terms. Julian had asked for dinner through Mara, which meant he had already learned that direct pressure was no longer working. The request came wrapped in soft language: "I want to apologize properly, no lawyers at the table, just us." Mara's reply had been colder: "Evelyn will meet you for 1 hour in a public place. She will not sign documents at this meeting." Julian agreed. That was the second warning. Men like Julian did not agree to limits unless they believed they had found another way through them. Inside, the hostess led me to the private back room. White roses filled the center of the table, not peonies, not lilies, white roses. Julian stood when I entered. For a second, I saw the man I married, dark hair brushed back, blue shirt open at the throat, the watch I gave him for his birthday, tired eyes. He looked human enough to hurt me. "Evelyn," he said softly. "Julian." He moved as if to kiss my cheek. I stepped back. His expression flickered. "Right," he said. "Of course." I sat. So did he. A waiter poured water from a glass bottle. I watched every movement. Julian noticed and looked wounded. "You think I would drug you?" "I think I am done assuming what you wouldn't do." His jaw tightened, but he swallowed whatever response had risen first. "I deserved that," he said. I waited. He looked down at his hands. "I handled the honeymoon badly. Badly." I almost admired the elegance of it. Badly was a word for late flights, overcooked fish, and awkward speeches. "Not for giving another woman your wife sweet." "I want to hear you say what you did," I said. His eyes lifted. "What? If you invited me here to apologize, say what you are apologizing for." He leaned back. "Evelyn." I reached for my handbag. "Then we're done." "Wait." He exhaled. "I booked Vanessa into the Ocean Suite, and I assigned you another room, and," his mouth tightened, "I said something cruel in the lobby." "What did you say?" He stared at me. The room felt smaller. "I said marriage was just paper." The words sounded different in candlelight, smaller than they had in the lobby, but no less ugly. I nodded. "Why did you say it?" "Because I was angry." "No." His eyes sharpened. "No, no. You said it because you believed it would put me in my place." A flush crept up his neck. "That is not fair." Fair was me learning about my room from a front desk clerk. He pressed his fingers to his eyes. "I am trying. Try with the truth." He dropped his hand. "Fine." I panicked. Vanessa being in the suite looked bad, and I needed you to stop reacting before staff started talking. I was reacting silently. Your silence is not subtle, Evelyn. Neither is adultery. His face hardened. "I did not sleep with her. You slept in her suite, on a sofa. Because that sounds better. It is the truth. Part of it." He looked away. A waiter appeared with wine. Julian nodded for him to pour. I covered my glass with my hand. "No wine." Julian's mouth twisted, still documenting. "Yes." The waiter vanished. For a few minutes, Julian performed remorse with skill. He said he had been under pressure from his father, he said. Vanessa blurred boundaries but meant well. He said the resort launch had become a machine that consumed everyone near it. He said he had taken me for granted. He said he missed our mornings. He said the apartment felt cold without my books on the nightstand. Some of it might even have been true. That was the cruel thing about manipulation. It did not always lie. It selected truth that served it. Then he reached into his jacket and placed a document on the table. There it was. The pen came next. Black lacquer, gold trim. His apology had accessories. I looked at the title: Marital Cooperation and Confidentiality Agreement. "Julian, just hear me out." "No, you haven't listened." I read it. This is a revised version. I said no. His voice tightened. It does not restore everything permanently. It gives us a cooling period. It restores your access. It allows the Westbridge call to proceed without confusion. It silences me. It protects both of us. From what? Public damage. From your behavior becoming public. He leaned forward. From our private marriage becoming a spectacle. Our private marriage became a spectacle when you humiliated me in your hotel lobby. He lowered his voice. I am offering you a way back. No, you are offering me a muzzle with dinner. His eyes flashed. Do you want to destroy me? The question startled me because for the first time that evening, his mask cracked enough for me to see what sat beneath, not grief, fear. I sat back slowly. Is that what you think this is? What else am I supposed to think? You froze accounts, revoked brand authorizations, threatened records, involved lawyers, contacted the bank. You left before dawn like you wanted a headline. I left before dawn because my husband was in the honeymoon suite with another woman. You left because you wanted leverage. The words hit harder than I expected, not because they were true, because he needed them to be true. If I was calculating, he did not have to be cruel. If I was strategic, he did not have to be ashamed. If I had always been waiting for leverage, then he had not broken a loving wife, he had merely failed to outmaneuver a rival. I looked at the man across from me and understood that he would rather believe I was monstrous than admit I had been wounded. Julian, I said quietly, I would have given you almost anything if you had asked honestly. His face changed for 1 second, real pain moved through it, then the door opened. Vanessa stepped in. She wore black tonight, sleek, expensive, calculated. Against the white roses, her eyes moved from Julian to me to the agreement on the table. Oh, she said, I didn't know she was already here. I laughed. I could not stop myself. It was one clean laugh, sharp enough to make Julian flinch. You brought her. He stood. No, Vanessa, this is not a good time. She held up her phone. Westbridge moved the prep call. I've been trying to reach you. At our apology dinner, I asked. Vanessa's mouth softened into sympathy. Evelyn, I know you're upset. But the business does not stop because you feel embarrassed. There it was again, embarrassed, as if I had tripped, as if my husband had not publicly handed my place to her. I looked at Julian. Tell her to leave. He froze. Vanessa looked amused. Julian said, Vanessa, give us a minute. A minute, I repeated. He turned to me. Don't do this. I asked you to tell another woman to leave our apology dinner. His eyes shifted to the document, then back to Vanessa. She has information I need. The sentence sat on the table beside the pen. I picked up my handbag. Julian reached across the table. Evelyn, sit down. No, you are proving my point. What point? That you cannot separate marriage from business. I looked at Vanessa. Can you? Her smile thinned. Then I turned back to Julian. You booked her my suite for business. You tried to move my trust distribution for business. You invited me here to restore authorization for business. If marriage and business are separate, you are terrible at geography. I took the document from the table. Julian's eyes sparked with hope for half a second. Then I folded it once and placed it into my handbag. My lawyer will keep this. His hope died. You can't take that, he said. You gave it to me. It was for discussion. It will be. I stood. Vanessa stepped aside from the doorway, but not enough. Her shoulder brushed mine as I passed, softly. Only for me, she said. You left too early. Evelyn. He stayed. I stopped. Julian said, Vanessa. I turned back to her. I know he did. Her smile faltered. And now, I said, so will the records. I walked out. The main dining room was full. People looked up as I passed. Maybe because my face showed more than I wanted. Maybe because Vanessa followed too closely and Julian came behind her saying my name in a controlled whisper. Evelyn. I kept walking. At the front door, he caught my wrist, not hard enough to bruise, hard enough to remind me he thought he could stop me. I looked down at his hand. Let go. He did, instantly, publicly. He was careful like that. Outside, rain had begun to fall. The same restaurant, the same weather as the proposal. This time, there was no velvet box, only my empty finger and the agreement in my bag. Julian stood under the awning with me while Vanessa waited inside the glass door, watching. You are making enemies, he said. No, I am identifying them. I loved you. The past tense was a mistake. We both heard it. He closed his eyes briefly. I love you. No, I said, you love what my forgiveness would solve. A taxi pulled up. I opened the door. Julian lowered his voice. If you release anything, you will regret it. I looked at him across the rain. I already regret something, I said, but it is not evidence. I got into the taxi and closed the door. By the time I reached my apartment, the story had already changed online. A gossip account with a blue check had posted, sources say hotel heiress adjacent bride Evelyn Hart left her husband Julian Vale during their honeymoon after a disagreement over business accommodations. Friends worry she is spiraling under pressure from the high-profile marriage. Hotel heiress adjacent, spiraling, business accommodations. I read the post once. Then again there were photos from the wedding. One of me laughing beside Julian, one of Patricia adjusting my veil, one cropped shot of Vanessa in the background, elegant and concerned. Mara called before I could call her. You saw it, she said. Yes, do not respond. I know, we trace the source. I know who the source is. We prove the source. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. Vanessa, I warned you dignity would look better. I stared at it until my reflection appeared on the black screen between messages. Then I forwarded it to Mara. Another message arrived from Julian. Julian, this is what happens when private matters are mishandled. For a moment, the old Evelyn wanted to scream, to throw the phone, to reply with every ugly truth. Instead, I opened the evidence folder and added 3 new files: the agreement, the gossip post, Vanessa's text. Then I made a new subfolder, public smear. Julian thought he had turned me into a runaway bride. He had no idea he had just given me a public lie with a timestamp. Mara's office looked different when war became routine. The coffee cups multiplied. The printer ran hot. Tessa moved between the conference room and copy room with stacks of documents clipped by colored tabs. On the whiteboard, Mara had drawn a timeline from the wedding day to the restaurant ambush. Each event had a label: wedding, honeymoon arrival, ocean suite reassignment, lobby statement, Julian key entry, trust authorization attempt, account revocation, brand suspension, fake apology, public smear. My marriage had become a sequence of evidence points in blue marker. I stood in front of the board with a paper cup of coffee going cold in my hand. It looks so clean like this, I said. Mara stood beside me. That's what documentation does, it turns chaos into something a judge can read. I don't know if I want a judge. You want options? Yes, then we build them. Her assistant opened the conference room door. Lena Ortiz is on the secure video link. My stomach tightened. Mara touched my elbow. Remember, we do not push. She gives what she can. Lena appeared on the screen in what looked like an employee break room. Fluorescent light washed her face pale. Her resort uniform was crisp, but shadows sat under her eyes. Behind her, I saw a vending machine, a corkboard with shift schedules, and a plastic chair with a tear in the seat. Ms. Hart, she said. Lena, thank you for speaking with us. She nodded, then looked at Mara. I only have 15 minutes. My manager thinks I'm on meal break. Mara leaned forward. We appreciate your time. I'll be clear, we are not asking you to send documents unlawfully. We are asking you to state what you personally observed and what records you know exist. Lena nodded again. Her hands were clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Mara began gently. Were you working at the front desk when Ms. Hart arrived for her honeymoon? Yes. Did you see a reservation for the ocean suite? Yes. In whose name? Lena swallowed. At the time of arrival, the active guest name was Vanessa Crowe. Do you know whether that reservation had previously been associated with Mr. and Mrs. Vale? Yes. How? I saw the modification log when I opened the booking. It had been changed twice. Originally Julian Vale and Evelyn Hart Vale, then Julian Vale plus guest, then Vanessa Crowe. My fingers tightened around the coffee cup. Mara's voice stayed even. Did Ms. Hart request access to another guest's private details? No. She asked about the booking paid through the Vale Hart honeymoon account. The screen showed the summary. Did Mr. Vale object? Yes. How? He said my name sharply, like he was warning me. I closed my eyes for a moment. I could hear it again. Lena. Mara continued. Was Ms. Crowe present? She came down from the elevator with an ocean suite keycard. What was she wearing? Lena hesitated. You may answer only what you remember. A resort robe, white or cream. Hotel slippers with initials. I noticed because Mrs. Hart looked at them. Do you know whose initials? EV. My name entered the record through someone else's mouth. It hurt more than I expected. Mara glanced at me, then back at the screen. Did you hear Mr. Vale say anything about marriage? Yes. What did you hear? Lena looked miserable. He said marriage was just paper and not to make a scene over a room. The room went quiet. I had the recording. I had known what he said, but hearing a witness repeat it made the humiliation leave my body and enter the world. It was no longer just mine to carry. Mara asked, after Ms. Hart checked out, did anyone from Vale or resort management question your conduct? Yes. Mr. Vale came to the desk. He asked who printed her folio. Later my manager said corporate had concerns that I disclosed private guest information. Had you printed Ms. Crow's folio? No, only Ms. Hart's separate folio for Garden Room 214. Do you fear retaliation? Lena's eyes flicked down. Yes. Why? I was taken off premium guest desk yesterday. My schedule changed. My manager said I needed retraining on confidentiality. Anger moved through me. Hot and clean, I leaned toward the screen. Lena, I am sorry. She shook her head quickly. It's not your fault. It is not yours either. Her mouth trembled once before she steadied it. Mara said, one more area, key logs and surveillance. Do you know whether they exist? Yes. Do you know whether they have been preserved? Your letter created a legal hold. IT marked the reservation records and key logs. Do you personally know what those logs show? I saw part of the key activity before access was restricted. Mara's tone sharpened. Tell us only what you personally saw. Mr. Vale's key entered the Ocean Suite vestibule at 12:43 a.m. There was no exit record until 6:08 a.m. My breath went shallow. The sofa, Mara asked. Was there a separate exit for that suite? No, not without triggering the terrace service gate, and that log showed no use. Do you know whether surveillance footage exists for the elevator vestibule? Yes. Do you know what it shows? Lena glanced toward the break room door. I saw a still before my access was removed. Ms. Crow kissed Mr. Vale near the private elevator. He did not push her away. I stared at the table. A kiss is a small thing until it is the one used to explain an entire marriage. Mara asked 2 more clarifying questions. Then Lena looked off screen and stiffened. I have to go. Thank you, Mara said. We will send a witness protection letter to corporate counsel. Do not communicate further from work systems. Lena nodded. Ms. Hart. I looked up. I don't know you, she said. But when you left, you were very calm. I thought maybe that meant it didn't hurt. I'm sorry I thought that. The words undid me more than anything Julian had said. I swallowed. It hurt. I know now. The call ended. I sat back slowly. Mara closed the laptop. She's credible. She's scared. Yes, both can be true. What happens to her? We put Vale on notice. Any employment action tied to this becomes retaliation, and if they do it anyway, then they buy themselves another problem. I stood and walked to the window. Below, traffic crawled through the avenue. People moved under umbrellas. The city kept proving life continued whether or not I was ready. My phone buzzed. Vanessa had sent a photo, no message, just a picture. The Ocean Suite terrace at sunset, the curve of the infinity pool, her hand holding a glass of champagne. On her wrist was a bracelet I recognized. Julian had bought it at the resort boutique, or rather, tried to buy it with the card I had revoked. Maybe he used his own. Maybe she did. It hardly mattered. Then the caption appeared, "You left too early." He stayed. I stared at it. Mara came up beside me. What is it? I handed her the phone. Her expression did not change. That was how I knew she was angry. Forward it. I did. Tessa entered with another stack of papers. We traced the gossip post. Mara turned, and initial push came from a boutique PR vendor called Crow Narrative Group, Vanessa's company. I laughed under my breath. She named her company that. Tessa shrugged. Some people confess in branding. Mara took the papers. Payment. Invoice issued to Vale Coastal Holdings. Description. Honeymoon narrative containment. The room went still. Honeymoon narrative containment. My humiliation had a line item. Mara looked at me. Evelyn, I'm okay. No, you're not, I know, but I am operational. Different thing. Yes. She placed the invoice on the table. This changes the smear from gossip to coordinated reputational harm funded by the company. Can we use it? We can use everything. By late afternoon, Vales. Corporate Counsel received 3 letters. One regarding Lena, one regarding unauthorized use of Heartline Living and my personal identity, one regarding public misrepresentations and the Crow Narrative Group invoice at 6. Julian called. I did not answer. He called again, then he texted Julian. You are backing me into corners I don't deserve to be in. I read it out loud to Mara. She snorted. He built the room. Another message arrived. Julian. Vanessa acted independently with that post, I typed. Before I could overthink, Evelyn. Then why did Vale pay her company for honeymoon narrative containment? The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Julian. You don't understand how PR works, Evelyn. I understand invoices, Julian. This is getting ugly because you keep escalating, Evelyn. It became ugly in the lobby, Julian. We need to meet without lawyers, Evelyn. No, Julian. You are my wife. I stared at that sentence. You are my wife 3 days ago. It might have warmed me. Now it looked like a claim of ownership, Evelyn. Then you should have remembered that before giving my place to Vanessa. He did not reply that night. I went home and opened the box marked bedroom. Inside were my books, a silk sleep mask, framed photos, and a small envelope in my mother's handwriting. I had forgotten packing it for Evelyn. When she makes a home, my throat tightened. I sat on the floor and opened it. Inside was a note. My darling girl, a home is not proven by who hands you a key. It is proven by whether you are safe when the door closes. If love asks you to become smaller to keep it, check the lock, Mom. I pressed the note to my chest and let myself cry then. Not the pretty crying people did in movies, not one tear sliding down a cheek. I cried with my hands over my mouth on the floor among half-unpacked boxes, because the woman who had warned me was gone and the man who promised me safety had made me unsafe in a room with his name on the wall. When the crying passed, I washed my face, then I opened my laptop. I wrote a statement, not to post, not yet, just to know what truth sounded like without. Julian's edits. My name is Evelyn Hart. I left my honeymoon before dawn because my husband booked the ocean suite under Vanessa Crow's name, paid for it from the Vale Hart honeymoon account, and told me in the hotel lobby that marriage was just paper. This is not a story about jealousy. It is a story about public humiliation, financial misuse, and a coordinated attempt to silence me after the fact. I read it once, then I saved it. At 11:23 p.m., a new email arrived from Samuel Reed, Westbridge. Capital MS, Hart, I hope you will forgive the direct note. Your counsel has not disclosed details, but recent authorization changes affect materials we were asked to rely upon for next month's Vale Coastal event. I would appreciate a confidential conversation regarding whether Heartline Living remains associated with the project. Integrity of representation matters to us. Samuel Reed. I read the last sentence twice. Integrity of representation matters to us. Julian had wanted investors not to hear. Now one had asked me directly. I forwarded it to Mara. Her response came 2 minutes later. We answer carefully, and we make him invite you to the room where Julian planned to use your name. Vanessa came to the marital home on Thursday wearing sunglasses. Though the sky was grey, the house no longer felt like a home. But Julian still had not changed the locks, and I still had legal access to collect the last of my archived design samples from the basement. Tessa came with me again. This time, so did a private security guard named Irene, whom Mara had hired after Julian's messages shifted from angry to unpredictable. I did not like needing security. I liked less that I felt relieved when Irene walked behind me. We were carrying boxes up from the basement when the front door opened. I froze on the stairs. Vanessa stepped into the foyer as if she belonged there. She had a garment bag over one arm and Julian's navy coat draped over the other. Her sunglasses rested on top of her head. Her lipstick was perfect. She looked at me and smiled. Oh, she said, you're still using the key. I reached the foyer and set the box down. I still have one. For now. Tessa clicked her pen. Irene said, Miss Hart, do you want her removed? Vanessa's smile faltered at the word removed. I said, not yet. Vanessa's eyes moved to the body camera clipped to Tessa's blazer. Are you recording me? We are documenting Ms. Hart's property removal, Tessa said. You entered after filming began. How convenient. Many legal protections are Tessa replied. I almost smiled. Vanessa shifted Julian's coat in her arms. Julian asked me to pick up a few things. He didn't want another confrontation. Julian knows I'm here. He knows everything eventually. The sentence was meant to sound intimate. It did. It also sounded rehearsed. I looked at the coat. You can leave his things in the library. I know where his bedroom is. The foyer seemed to hold its breath. Irene took one step forward. Vanessa lifted a hand. Relax, I'm not here to fight. No, I said, you're here to perform. Her eyes sharpened. Good. There she was. Tessa made a note. Vanessa walked toward the staircase. I moved into her path. No, she laughed. Evelyn, this house is basically a company asset. It is a marital residence. Temporary one, from what I hear. You hear a lot for someone who claims not to be involved. I am involved because you keep dragging me into your insecurity. I tilted my head. I dragged you into my honeymoon. Sweet, her jaw tightened. There were women who became cruel because they wanted a man. Vanessa was not that simple. She did not look lovesick standing in my foyer with Julian's coat. She looked inconvenienced, like I was a locked door between her and a room she had been promised. You know what your problem is, she said. I'm sure you'll tell me. You thought marriage made you irreplaceable. I felt Tessa go still beside me. Vanessa stepped closer. Her perfume was expensive, floral, and cold. Julian needs someone who understands the world he lives in, investors, press, pressure, family expectations, not someone who collapses because a sweet assignment didn't match her fantasy. A sweet assignment, I said. She smiled. Yes, you mean the ocean suite under your name, if we're being accurate. It was a strategic preview experience. You sound like your invoice. Her face changed. There it was, a crack. I continued. Honeymoon narrative containment, wasn't it? Vanessa's eyes flicked. To the camera. Too late. I stepped aside and gestured toward the library. Leave the coat. She did not move. You think you're winning because you have documents, she said. But documents don't keep a man warm. No, I said. Apparently my robe did. Her cheeks flushed for the first time since I had met her. Vanessa looked truly angry. You left, she said. Remember that. You walked out before dawn. You abandoned him. I checked out after he checked me out of my own marriage. She laughed. But it shook. God, you really do talk like a deposition. And you talk like a woman who forgot she was being recorded. Silence. I watched the words land. Vanessa glanced at Tessa's camera again, then lifted her chin. Record this, she said. Julian will never choose a woman who makes him feel poor. There it was. Not loved, not understood. Poor. Tessa's pen stopped. I let the silence stretch because people like Vanessa hated empty space. They rushed to fill it with truth. She did. You have no idea what it's like to be beside someone like him without owning the room, she said. You walk in with your mother's trust, your little legacy brand, your name on every approval, and you think that's love. It's not, it's leverage. At least I know what I'm doing. What are you doing? She smiled again. But this one was uglier. Taking the life you keep funding but don't know how to enjoy. The foyer went quiet. Even Irene looked at her differently. I felt no triumph. Not then. The words were too revealing to be satisfying. They showed the shape of Vanessa's hunger. And it was larger than Julian. Julian was the elevator. The suite was the door. The life was the destination. I said, thank you. Her eyes narrowed. For what? For being accurate. I picked up Julian's coat from her arms. She resisted for a second, then let it go. I walked into the library and placed it on the chair beneath our engagement portrait. Julian in a navy suit, me in a cream dress. Both of us smiling at a future already being negotiated behind my back. Vanessa followed me to the doorway. You know he still loves me, she said. I turned. It should have hurt. Maybe it did. But by then I had seen too much of what Vanessa called love. Then why are you trying so hard to live as me? I asked. Her mouth parted. No answer came. The front door opened again. Julian entered like a man walking into a scene he thought he could control. He stopped when he saw all of us. Me, Vanessa, Tessa, Irene, the body camera, his coat in the library chair. His eyes went first to Vanessa, not to me. Of course. What happened? He asked. Vanessa moved toward him. She's filming me, Tessa said. Ms. Crow entered a documented property removal and made voluntary statements. Julian's face darkened. Turn that off. No, Tessa said. He looked at me. You brought a security guard into my house. Our marital residence, I said. And yes, this is absurd. Vanessa touched his arm. Julian, I told you this would happen. She's trying to provoke me. I looked at her hand on his sleeve. The gesture was intimate, possessive, public. Julian did not move away. There was my answer. Again and again and again I picked up the last box. I'm done here. Julian blocked the doorway. No, you are done when we talk. Irene stepped forward. Sir, move aside. He stared at her as if employees had never spoken to him in full sentences. Excuse me, move aside. His eyes cut to me. You need hired muscle to leave a conversation. No, I said, I need hired muscle because you keep mistaking refusal for negotiation. Vanessa whispered. This is insane. I looked at her. You keep using that word because it is cheaper than guilty. Julian's face flushed. Enough, he said. Evelyn, the Westbridge team reached out to me this morning because your lawyer is creating confusion. You will tell them Heartline remains aligned. No. You will not destroy my family's company. I am not destroying anything by withdrawing from a lie. You think you're better than us because your mother put money in a trust. That one hit. Julian saw it. He stepped closer. His voice softened in the way it used to before a kiss. Eve, don't become hard because you're hurt. I hated that my name in his voice still found old pathways in me. Then Vanessa's phone buzzed. She glanced down and smiled before hiding it. Julian noticed. What? Nothing, she said too quickly. He held out his hand. Show me. Her expression changed. Julian, show me. For one surreal second, I watched them become what they were without me. Suspicion, control, performance cracking under pressure. Vanessa handed him the phone. His face shifted as he read. What is this? He asked. She reached for it. It's just strategy. He pulled it away. You told Miles at Crow Narrative that Evelyn leaving makes the sympathy angle easier. Vanessa's eyes flashed to me. I did not move. Julian scrolled. His face hardened. You said, if we can paint her unstable before she finds the sweet records, Jay will have to commit. There it was. Jay, not Julian, not the man she loved. A letter in a strategy thread. Vanessa's voice sharpened. You were panicking. I was managing the situation. By turning my wife into a headline, I almost laughed at the sudden return of wife. Vanessa crossed her arms. Don't act noble now. You liked the plan when it protected the launch. Julian looked at me for the first time. He seemed to understand that the room had no place left for his version of events. Tessa's camera recorded everything. I said, you should both be careful. The truth keeps interrupting. I walked toward the door. This time, Julian did not block me outside. The air smelled of rain. Irene loaded the box into the car. Tessa reviewed her notes beside me, face bright with professional satisfaction. That, she said, was a gift. It felt disgusting. Evidence often does. My phone buzzed. Mara. Tessa must have sent a quick alert because Mara's first words were, tell me Vanessa said something stupid. She said she was taking the life I keep funding. Mara was silent for half a beat. Then she said, I'm naming my next boat after her. I didn't know you had a boat. I don't. But if this settlement is as good as it may be, I'll consider a kayak. I smiled despite myself. The smile faded when I looked back at the house, through the front window. I could see Julian and Vanessa arguing in the foyer. Vanessa's hands moved fast. Julian stood rigid, phone in hand, caught between the woman he had protected and the consequences she had made visible. Once, I would have run back in to smooth it over, to translate anger into apology, to keep peace. Instead, I got into the car. As we pulled away, Julian appeared on the front steps. He did not call my name. He only watched me leave with an expression I had not seen before. Not regret, calculation under stress. That frightened me more. An hour later, Mara called again. Julian's legal team just requested a private mediation before the Westbridge event. Why? Because Samuel Reed formally asked whether you will attend the investor banquet next month. I watched rain streak the car window. The banquet is at a Vale hotel, isn't it? Yes, Mara said. Their flagship ballroom. A hotel again. The place where Julian knew how to perform. The place where he first taught me what my marriage was worth. I closed my eyes and saw gold letters on marble. Vale Coastal Resorts. When is it? I asked. 3 weeks. I opened my eyes. Tell Samuel I'll attend. The first time Julian won in public, he did it with a handkerchief. It happened at my mother's foundation luncheon, which made the cruelty almost elegant. The Heart Foundation hosted a spring benefit every year for young designers who could not afford unpaid internships. My mother had built it after listening to too many talented students describe rent as if it were a natural disaster. After she died, I took over the luncheon because I could not bear to let the room go quiet without her. This year, the luncheon was held at the Westbury Club. The ballroom had pale green walls and tall windows overlooking a private garden. My mother had hated private clubs, but donors loved them, and the scholarship students needed donors more than they needed my principals. I wore navy, no ring, no veil name on the program. That last part was deliberate. Mara reviewed my remarks in the car. Keep it about the foundation. If reporters ask about Julian, no comment, I know. If they ask about Vanessa, no comment, I know. If they ask whether you are mentally unstable, do not answer with sarcasm. I looked at her. She sighed. Fine, minimal sarcasm. I almost felt normal walking into the ballroom. People kissed my cheek, squeezed my hands, said my mother would be proud. A student named Alina showed me a portfolio inspired by public housing courtyards. For 10 minutes, I remembered there were things in the world that were not Julian. Then I saw him near the donor wall. Julian stood beside Patricia. He should not have been there. His name had not been on the guest list. Neither had hers, but Patricia had donated to the foundation after our engagement, and rich people treated donations like keys. Julian wore a charcoal suit and the expression of a man in pain but willing to be brave in public. Patricia held his arm with one hand and a white handkerchief with the other. The handkerchief was important. She lifted it to her eyes as soon as she saw me. Mara whispered, "Oh, that woman is good." Every head near the donor wall turned. Julian did not approach. That would have been too aggressive. He simply looked at me across the room with wounded restraint. It was theater, effective theater. A board member named Celia touched my elbow. "Evelyn, I didn't know Julian was coming." "Neither did I." She hesitated. "Is everything all right?" Before I could answer, a young reporter stepped into my path. "Ms. Hart, do you have a comment on reports that you left your honeymoon over a dispute involving a business guest?" Mara moved forward. "No personal questions today." The reporter kept his eyes on me. "Sources close to the Vale family say Mr. Vale has been trying to reconcile while you've frozen assets tied to his company. Is this a financial dispute?" Heads turned. The old Evelyn would have flushed. She would have said that was not true, or it was complicated, or please respect our privacy. She would have stepped into the trap and tried to explain pain to people holding champagne. I said, "Today is about the Heart Foundation and the scholarship recipients. Did you leave your honeymoon before dawn?" Mara said. "That's enough." The reporter's voice sharpened. "Were you advised by counsel to use marital conflict as leverage in a business dispute?" Across the room, Julian lowered his eyes as if the question embarrassed him. Patricia pressed the handkerchief to her mouth. I realized then that they had chosen the venue carefully. My mother's foundation, my donors, my grief. If I defended myself too forcefully, I would look like I had brought scandal into my mother's room. If I stayed silent, their version breathed. I chose silence. It cost me. The luncheon continued, but the air changed. People were kind, but kindness developed edges. Whispers followed me between tables. A donor's wife asked if stress had affected my sleep. Another told me marriage required humility. One board member suggested postponing my remarks if emotions were running high. Emotions. Julian had turned betrayal into my emotional weather. When it was time to speak, I walked to the podium with my note cards in hand. The microphone made a soft pop. I looked out at the room. Julian stood near the back. Patricia sat at a front table, handkerchief folded in her lap like a small white flag she had no intention of honoring. I gave the speech. I spoke about my mother starting her career with a drafting table bought secondhand from a closing office. I spoke about how talent often died not because it lacked brilliance, but because it lacked rent. I spoke about the scholarship winners by name. I did not mention Julian. I did not mention Vanessa. I did not mention the hotel lobby. My voice did not break until the last line. My mother believed a room could change a life. I said, not because walls save us, but because safety gives people permission to become themselves. I looked at Julian when I said safety. His expression did not change after the applause. He approached. Mara stepped with me, but Julian lifted both hands slightly. Public, harmless, controlled. Evelyn, he said, you were beautiful up there. Why are you here? To support you. No, his eyes flicked toward nearby donors. Can we not do this here? You chose here. I was invited. By whom? My mother is a donor. Your mother is a strategist. His mouth tightened. You are seeing enemies everywhere. I'm seeing patterns. He leaned closer. Do you understand how bad this looks? You refusing to speak to me, freezing assets, hiding behind Mara, while I'm here trying to support your mother's work. There it was, the knife under the flowers. My mother's work does not need your performance. His eyes cooled. Careful. People already think you're unstable. The word came quietly. No one else heard it. That was Julian at his most dangerous. Private cruelty inside public elegance. I smiled for the room. Then step away from me before you make them wonder why. For a second, hatred flashed across his face, then he smiled too. Of course, he said. He turned to leave, but not before placing something on the cocktail table beside me. My wedding ring. The diamond caught the ballroom light. Several people saw it. Patricia saw it. Her hand went to her heart. Julian spoke just loudly enough for those near us to hear. I'll keep hoping you remember what we promised. Then he walked away. The room absorbed the scene exactly as he intended. Husband returns ring. Wife refuses. Mother-in-law cries. Lawyer watches. I could feel the story forming around me like wet cement. Mara murmured. Do not pick it up, I know. Do not throw it at him, I know. A photographer near the garden doors took a picture. That picture went online within an hour. Caption: Julian Vale offers wedding ring to estranged bride Evelyn Hart at charity luncheon. Sources say he remains committed to reconciliation by evening. The gossip cycle had made me cold, proud, unstable, manipulative, and possibly greedy. Julian became heartbroken. Patricia became dignified. Vanessa disappeared entirely from the narrative, which was the point. I sat in Mara's office after dark, shoes kicked off under the conference table, reading comments I should not have read. She left him on the honeymoon and now wants money. Rich women weaponize everything. He looks devastated. Why won't she just talk to him? 3 days married and already freezing accounts. Red flag. Mara took my phone. Enough. They believe him. They believe a curated image. It still counts. Yes, she said, and it hurts. Don't pretend it doesn't. I leaned back and covered my face. For the first time since leaving the resort, I felt tired in a way evidence could not solve. Julian had taken the one room where I still felt connected to my mother and staged himself as the wounded husband inside it. He had not needed facts, just lighting, a ring, his mother's handkerchief. I lost today, I said. Mara was quiet, then she said, yes. I lowered my hands. She met my eyes. You did, publicly, temporarily, because we could not expose Lena yet, because Westbridge is not ready, because full disclosure before the banquet would let them bury records. So yes, today hurt. It was also useful. I hate when you say useful, I know, but listen, Julian has now publicly claimed he wants reconciliation. He has positioned himself as faithful, patient, and wronged. That means if we prove he was with Vanessa in the Ocean Suite while running a smear campaign through her company, the fall is much worse. I closed my eyes. I know. Also, Tessa traced the photographer. I opened them. The ring photo, commissioned by Crow Narrative Group, of course. Vanessa paid for my humiliation at my mother's luncheon. Vale paid Crow Narrative. Crow hired the photographer. The invoice says reputational stabilization. I laughed, but no sound came out. Mara slid a printed invoice toward me. There it was: photographer, event placement, reconciliation, visual capture. I read the words until they blurred, then my phone rang. Samuel Reed. Mara nodded for me to answer. I did. MS. Hart, he said. His voice was measured, older, with the calm of someone used to expensive rooms. I apologize for calling late. It's all right. I saw today's coverage. My stomach tightened. I can imagine. I prefer not to imagine. I prefer documents. I looked at Mara. She heard him through the speaker and smiled slowly. Samuel continued. Westbridge is being asked to rely on a veil presentation that references your brand, your family legacy, and your marital partnership. Before our investment committee proceeds, I would like to know whether you will attend the anniversary banquet and clarify your position directly. Julian had used public theatre, Samuel wanted public records. When is the final program set? I asked. 2 weeks from Friday. That is soon. It is. I understand if you prefer to avoid the room. I looked at the ring sitting in an evidence bag on Mara's table. She had sent Tessa back to retrieve it after the luncheon ended, not because I wanted it, because Julian had used it as a prop, and props became evidence when attached to invoices. No, I said, I'll be there. Mara's smile widened. Samuel paused. MS. Heart. Forgive me for being direct. This may become uncomfortable. I thought of the lobby, the garden room, Patricia's handkerchief, Vanessa's photo, Julian's hand closing around my wrist under the restaurant awning. It already is, I said. After the call, Mara wrote banquet across the whiteboard in red. Under it, she drew 3 columns: evidence, witnesses, trigger. What's the trigger? I asked. The moment they lie in public. While relying on your silence, I stared at the word trigger. Julian thought he had one because I had stayed quiet at the luncheon. He did not know silence could be loaded. Patricia Vale called it dinner because ambush was too honest. The invitation arrived on thick cream stationery delivered by courier. Because Patricia believed cruelty should have texture. Evelyn, whatever has happened between you and Julian, we remain family. Please join us at the house Sunday evening. No attorneys, no press, no outsiders. Just a table and the people who love you enough to speak plainly. Patricia. Mara read it and said, absolutely not. I said, absolutely yes. She looked at me over the paper. I dislike this new habit you have of walking toward knives. I need them on record. We have records, not of the family motive. Mara leaned back. You think they'll say it out loud? I think Patricia can't resist correcting people. I think Martin can't resist reminding me how money works, and I think Julian believes if he gets me in that house, I'll remember wanting to belong. Mara studied me. Are you sure you won't? The question was not cruel, it was necessary. I looked at the invitation: family, people who love you enough to speak plainly. I had wanted a family badly enough to ignore how often the Vales used that word when asking me for something. I may remember, I said, but I won't return. So Sunday evening, I went, not alone. Irene drove me and waited outside. Mara objected to the no attorney's condition by writing a letter that said I would attend as a private individual but would not waive counsel, rights, claims, or the ability to record where legally permitted. Patricia responded with silence, which meant she hated it but had no clean way to refuse. I wore a simple black dress. No necklace, no ring. My phone sat in the inner pocket of my blazer, fully charged, recording before I stepped through the front door. The Vale family dining room was long, dark, and formal. A chandelier hung over a table set for 8. Patricia sat at one end, Martin sat at the other, silver-haired and square-jawed, with the expression of a man who considered disappointment a management tool. Julian stood by the sideboard with a glass of scotch. His sister Caroline sat near the middle, eyes red as if she had been crying or had wanted me to think she had. Vanessa was not there. That was the first surprise. Patricia rose. Evelyn. Patricia. Again, the missing mom landed. Her smile tightened. Come in. Julian looked at me but did not move to embrace me. Good, he was learning some limits, or at least performing awareness of them. We sat. Soup arrived. Nobody ate. Martin began because Martin always believed money gave him the first word. Evelyn, he said, this situation has become destructive. This situation. He frowned. Do not parse language. It is tiresome. I find language useful. Julian set down his glass. We are not here to fight. I looked around the table. Then. Why am I here? Caroline leaned forward. Because you're hurting everyone. I turned to her. How? Mom can't sleep. Dad's under pressure. Julian looks awful. The launch is a mess. People are talking. People talked after Julian hired a PR firm to make them talk. Patricia's eyes hardened. That is an outrageous accusation. No. I said, it is an invoice. Martin's hand came down on the table. Not a slam, a controlled impact. Silverware jumped anyway. Enough, he said. This family does not litigate at dinner. This family sent me a legal addendum after my honeymoon. Julian leaned forward. Because you were freezing resources without discussing it. I revoked access to my resources after you used them on Vanessa. Caroline whispered. She was working. I looked at her. In my robe. Color rose in her face. Patricia said, "Must you be vulgar? Specific is not vulgar." Martin exhaled. "Let us stop pretending this is about a robe or a room, Evelyn. You know what is at stake." There it was. I felt my body still. Julian noticed. His eyes flicked to me. Martin continued, "Westbridge expects continuity. The Heartline Association is central to the coastal repositioning. Your mother's legacy gives the project credibility with a demographic we cannot access through Vale alone. You understood that when you agreed to marry into this family," Julian said. "Dad." But he said it too late. I kept my voice even. When I agreed to marry Julian, I understood I was becoming his wife, not a demographic bridge. Patricia sighed. "Do not be naive. Marriage at our level has always included responsibility." "At our level," I repeated. Caroline said, "Mom means family responsibility." "No," I said, "she means asset alignment." Martin's gaze sharpened. "You benefited from the Vale name too." "How?" "Visibility, security, a place in a family with reach." I looked at the walls, oil portraits, silver sconces, dark wood polished by generations of people paid to polish it. I had visibility before Julian. I had security before Julian. I had a family before Julian. Patricia's mouth tightened. "Your mother is gone." The room went silent. Julian turned on her. "Mom." But again, too late, the words hit with surgical precision. Patricia knew exactly where to cut because I had shown her the wound. I had let her hold my grief and call it bonding. For a moment, I could not speak. Then I looked at her and saw something I had missed before. Not hatred, not even cruelty for its own sake, calculation. Patricia believed loneliness was an opening. She had offered family the way a bank offered credit, with terms. "My mother is gone," I said. "Her protections are not." Martin leaned back. "Ah, so that is what this is. You plan to hide behind the trust. I plan to enforce it." Julian's voice softened. "Eve, you're making this adversarial." "No. I'm noticing it was always negotiated." He flinched. Patricia pushed back her chair slightly. "We have tried kindness. We have tried patience. So let me be plain. If you continue down this road, you will not simply lose Julian. You will lose us." I looked at her. The threat would have devastated me 6 months ago. Now it clarified the table. "You say that like you are offering love," I said. "But you are withdrawing access." Her eyes flashed. Martin slid an envelope across the table. "Read it." I did not touch it. "Another agreement, a path forward," he said. Julian stared at the envelope. He did not look comfortable. That interested me. I opened it. The document was shorter than the previous one, more direct. It required me to restore Heartline authorization for the Vale Coastal Resort launch, release a joint statement acknowledging emotional overreaction during early marital adjustment, and agree to private counseling with Julian. In exchange, Vale would pause any claims against me for reputational harm. There was also a clause about the honeymoon. I read it once. Then again, the parties agree that no admission of marital misconduct, financial misuse, or reputational injury shall arise from accommodations arranged during the honeymoon period. Accommodations arranged. I placed the paper on the table. "Who wrote this?" Martin said. "Counsel." "Did counsel also advise you to call my humiliation accommodations?" Julian rubbed his forehead. "Evelyn." I turned to him. "Did you know about this?" He hesitated. That was enough. "Julian." He looked at me. I knew they were drafting something to calm the situation, to calm Westbridge, to calm everyone except me. His face twisted. "You refuse to be calmed, because you keep mistaking my silence for consent." Caroline burst into tears. It was sudden and loud enough to startle everyone. "Why are you doing this?" she cried. "We had a wedding. We all showed up for you. Mom worked so hard. Julian loves you. Vanessa is a complication." "Fine, but you're acting like none of us matter." I looked at her across the candles. "You all mattered to me," I said. "That is why this worked for as long as it did." She stopped crying for half a second. Patricia said, "Do not patronize her." "I'm not." Martin leaned forward. "Sign the statement, Evelyn. Restore authorization through the banquet. After that, you and Julian can make whatever private decisions you need." Through the banquet, the words lit up the room. "That's what this is about." I said, "You need me visible at the banquet." Patricia's silence confirmed it. Julian said, "We need stability." "No, You need me standing beside you while investors believe my name is still attached. Martin's eyes did not move from mine. You owe this family a chance to avoid unnecessary collapse. I owe this family nothing. Patricia's composure cracked. After everything we gave you, what did you give me? A home, she snapped. A name, a place. I stood slowly, the chair legs scraped against the floor. No, I said. You gave me a role, and when I stopped performing it, you invited me to dinner to threaten me with losing the costume. Julian stood too. Don't leave. I am done, Evelyn. No. I picked up the document and placed it in my handbag. Martin's voice sharpened. That draft is privileged. You gave it to me at dinner. You were not authorized to remove it. I looked at him. Then you should stop handing me evidence. The room went still, Patricia's face drained. Julian understood first. His eyes dropped to my blazer pocket. Are you recording? He asked. I did not answer. Martin rose. Give me the phone. No. Julian stepped around the table. Evelyn. Don't. I backed toward the doorway. Irene is outside. Mara knows where I am, and if anyone touches me, this recording goes from useful to explosive. Caroline whispered. Oh my God. Patricia sat very still, one hand at her throat. Martin's face had gone a dangerous shade of red. Julian stopped 6 feet away, his voice lowered. You planned this. You invited me. You came here to trap us. No, I said. I came here to let you speak plainly. Patricia promised that in writing. Patricia flinched. I turned toward the hallway. Julian followed me but kept distance. Evelyn. Wait. Please. The please sounded real. I hated that it still mattered. At the front door, he said, I don't want to lose you. I paused with my hand on the knob. Behind me, the dining room murmured with panic. I turned. Julian, you lost me when you gave my place away and then punished me for noticing. His face tightened. I made mistakes. You made choices. I can fix this. No, you can only lose less. That landed. His eyes went wet, but I no longer trusted wet eyes in expensive rooms. I opened the door. Irene stood at the curb beside the car, alert as I stepped outside. Julian said my name one more time. Not Evelyn. Not Eve. Mrs. Vale. I turned back. He stood in the doorway under the porch light, handsome, exhausted, and cornered by his own life. That is paper, I said. Then I got into the car. Mara was waiting at my apartment when I arrived. She listened to the recording with headphones. Expression unreadable. I paced the kitchen. Twice, she paused to take notes. Once, she looked up sharply at Patricia's sentence about my mother. I saw rage cross her face before she tucked it away. When the recording ended, she removed the headphones. Well, I asked. Mara looked at me. They gave us the banquet. I leaned against the counter. My legs felt weak. They said enough. They said motive. They said reliance. They said pressure. They said they need you through the banquet. And Martin basically admitted your mother's legacy is material to Westbridge. I looked at the city lights beyond my window. The banquet was 2 Fridays away, the main ballroom of a Vale hotel. Investors, press, family friends, luxury travel editors, board members. The same world that had swallowed Julian's ring performance would be gathered under one roof. Mara said, Are you ready for what happens if we use this publicly? No. Good. Anyone who feels ready for public detonation is probably a sociopath. I smiled faintly. She leaned forward. Evelyn, we can still keep this quieter. Use the recording in negotiations. Get your exit. Protect Lena. Walk away. The offer hung between us. Quiet. Clean. Tempting. Then I thought of the gossip posts calling me unstable, the reporter at my mother's luncheon, Patricia's handkerchief, Vanessa's champagne terrace, Lena's shaking voice. Julian saying, people already think you're unstable. Quiet had protected them. I want the truth in the room where they planned to use my silence, I said. Mara nodded slowly. Then we prepare for the banquet. The Vale Grand Ballroom had been designed to make people feel rich even if they already were. Crystal chandeliers floated above mirrored walls. White orchids stood in tall glass cylinders. Champagne moved through the crowd on silver trays. At the far end, a stage had been built beneath a massive screen showing slow drone footage of turquoise water, cream sand, and the curved glass balconies of Vale Coastal Resort. The ocean suite appeared in 3 different shots each time. My stomach tightened. I arrived with Mara, not as my lawyer officially, but as my guest. She wore black and looked bored in the way only litigators could look before ruining someone's evening. Irene waited near the side entrance. Tessa sat in the AV booth with a technician Samuel Reed trusted more than anyone hired by Vale. This had taken 2 weeks of careful work, not dramatic work. Careful. Samuel had insisted that any correction to investor materials be handled through proper channels. Mara had insisted that proper channels included the right to respond if Julian or Vale misrepresented my authorization. Lena had given a sworn statement through counsel. The bank had confirmed attempted trust acceleration. Heartline Living had formally revoked all launch usage unless I personally reinstated it. Julian knew some of this. He did not know all of it, that was the point. I stood near the entrance and watched him work the room. He looked perfect. Navy tuxedo, clean shave, smile calibrated to suggest strength under strain. Patricia moved beside him in silver, greeting guests with tragic grace. Martin stood near Samuel Reed, speaking with his hands clasped behind his back. Caroline hovered near the bar, pale and anxious. Vanessa stood near the stage. She wore red, of course she did, not bright red, deep, expensive, almost wine. Her badge read Vanessa Crow, Strategic Communications, narrative containment in heels. She saw me and smiled. I smiled back. Mara murmured, "Terrifying, never do that to me." "Do what?" "Smile like you have documents." I almost laughed. Julian noticed me then. His smile faltered for less than a second. Then he crossed the room. "Evelyn, Julian." His eyes moved to Mara. "I thought this was not a legal proceeding." Mara lifted a champagne flute she had not touched. "Everything is potentially a legal proceeding if you behave badly enough." His jaw tightened. I said, "Congratulations on the event." "Thank you." His voice lowered. "I'm glad you came." "I'm sure you are." He looked at me carefully. "Can we be civil tonight?" "Civil is easy. Honest may be harder." His face changed. "Evelyn," he said softly, "do not do this tonight." "Do what?" "Punish everyone." I looked around the ballroom. Investors, journalists, family friends, people who had liked posts about my supposed instability because Julian gave them a prettier story than the truth. "I'm not here to punish everyone." "Then why are you here?" "Because my name is in your program." His eyes flicked away. It was, despite the revocation notices, Vale had printed materials days earlier listing Heartline Living as an aesthetic legacy partner. They had removed the logo from the main deck after Mara's letter but left references throughout the event program. My mother's name appeared in a paragraph about intergenerational design trust. My mother had been dead less than 2 years, and Julian's family was still trying to make her useful. Julian said, "That was a printing oversight. Convenient. We can correct it later." "You correct mistakes before people rely on them." His voice tightened. "You don't understand what's at stake." "I do. That is your problem." Before he could answer, Vanessa appeared beside him. "Evelyn," she said warmly, "you look well." "Vanessa." She tilted her head. "I'm surprised you came." "I was invited." "Of course." Her eyes glittered. "It's generous of you to support Julian after everything." I looked at her badge. "Are you here as support or invoice?" Her smile froze. Julian said sharply, "Enough." Several people nearby glanced over. "Good, let him worry about scenes." A chime sounded from the stage. The program was beginning. Samuel Reed stepped up first, welcoming the guests with controlled warmth. He spoke about hospitality, trust, and the importance of accurate representations in investment partnerships. His eyes found mine once from the podium. Then he introduced Martin. Martin gave a polished speech about legacy. Patricia dabbed her eyes at the right moment. The screen showed old photographs of Vale hotels, then renderings of the coastal resort. My mother's design language appeared in every soft curve and natural texture, though her name had been reduced to atmosphere. Then Julian took the stage. The room applauded. He stood beneath the screen, handsome and composed, the wounded husband remade as visionary heir. He spoke about renewal, family, and the future of coastal hospitality. He thanked his father, his mother, his team. Then he looked at me. "And I want to acknowledge my wife, Evelyn Hartvale." The room turned. My skin went cold. Mara whispered, "Trigger." Julian continued, voice rich with emotion. "The past few weeks have been personally difficult. Marriage, like business, requires humility, forgiveness, and faith. Evelyn's family legacy has inspired so much of this project, and I believe that despite private challenges, our shared commitment to this vision remains. Shared commitment. Private challenges. Wife. He had done it in public, on record, in the room where investors were relying on him. Julian lifted his glass, to family, to partnership, to the future we build together. Applause rose, not from everyone. Samuel did not clap, Mara did not move, I did not breathe. Then I stood, the applause thinned. Julian saw me and went still. I walked toward the stage. Mara followed 2 steps behind with the folder. The room parted slowly, reluctantly, like people sensing weather before thunder. Julian leaned away from the microphone. Evelyn, don't. I stepped onto the stage. The ballroom had become very quiet. I took the second microphone from its stand. My name is Evelyn Hart, I said. The sound of my unmarried name moved through the speakers, clean and unmistakable. Julian's face went pale beneath the stage lights. I turned to the room. Since my name, my mother's legacy, and my alleged marital commitment have just been used in connection with this project, I need to correct the record. Patricia stood. Evelyn, this is not the place. I looked at her. It became the place when your son made me part of the presentation. Murmurs rippled. Julian reached for my arm. I looked down at his hand. He stopped before touching me. Good. I nodded toward the AV booth. The screen behind us changed first. The reservation record, Ocean Suite, guest, Vanessa Crowe, payment, Veilheart honeymoon account, special requests, spousal experience package. The room went silent in a way applause never could. I heard a glass clink somewhere near the back. I said, this is the reservation summary visible at the front desk on the first night of my honeymoon. Julian whispered. Evelyn, I continued, the Ocean Suite referenced in your materials tonight was booked under Vanessa Crowe's name and paid through the Veilheart honeymoon account. I was assigned Garden Room 214. The screen changed. A photo of my separate folio. Checkout timestamp, 4:57 a.m. I checked out before dawn. Another slide, a transcript excerpt of Julian's recorded words. Marriage is just paper. Don't make a scene over a room. Gasps now, real ones. Vanessa looked as if someone had cut the floor beneath her. Her red dress seemed suddenly too bright. Julian stepped toward the microphone. This is a private marital matter taken out of context. Mara handed me the next page. I looked at him, then explained the context. He froze. I turned back to the room. The context continued at 5:12 a.m., when Vale Coastal Holdings attempted to accelerate a distribution from the Hart Legacy Trust without my required authorization. The screen displayed the bank notification, with sensitive details redacted. Martin stood so abruptly his chair struck the table behind him. That is confidential financial information, he snapped. Samuel Reed's voice cut through the ballroom. It is material representation information if it affected our reliance. Martin turned red. The room shifted. Investors leaned toward one another. Journalists raised phones. Patricia remained standing, one hand gripping the back of her chair. Julian said, my father's finance team made a routine timing request. I looked at him. You told me you knew there were timing issues before the Westbridge call. The screen changed to a transcript from our phone call. I knew we needed to move quickly before the Westbridge call. Yes. Julian's mouth closed. I heard Vanessa whisper, oh my God. Then I looked at her. You also paid MS Crowe's company for what the invoice described as honeymoon narrative containment. The screen changed. Crowe Narrative Group, client, Vale Coastal Holdings, description, honeymoon narrative containment, reputational stabilization, reconciliation. Visual capture. A wave of murmurs moved through the ballroom. Vanessa's face drained of color. That invoice is privileged, she said weakly. Mara leaned toward the microphone, smiling pleasantly. It was produced by a vendor to a corporate account and then used to coordinate public statements about my client. It is not a magic spell. Someone near the back laughed once, then stopped. I moved to the final slide. Not the keylogs, not the kiss. I had debated using them. They were devastating. But they were also intimate in a way that risked making the room focus on sex instead of structure. Mara had advised me to use the evidence that proved misuse, misrepresentation, and motive. Still, Julian forced my hand. He stepped to the microphone, voice raw now. I made mistakes as a husband. I have admitted that privately. But Evelyn is using a painful marital misunderstanding to destroy my family's business because I failed to meet her emotional expectations on one night. There it was, one night, one room, emotional expectations. I nodded toward Tessa. The screen changed to video, not inside the suite, outside it. The private elevator vestibule. Timestamp, 12:41 a.m. Vanessa stood close to Julian, one hand on his chest. He said something the camera did not capture. She smiled, leaned up, and kissed him. His hand moved to her waist. He did not push her away. Then the two of them entered the ocean suite. The door closed. The next frame appeared. Keylog, Julian Vale entry 12:43 a.m., exit 6:08 a.m. The ballroom went still enough that I heard Patricia make a sound like a breath breaking. I turned to Julian. It was never one room. His face had gone completely white. Vanessa stepped back as if distance might rewrite the footage. I faced the room again. As of tonight, Heartline Living is not associated with the Vale Coastal Resort launch. The Hart Legacy Trust has not authorized any distribution to Vale Coastal Holdings. My mother's name is not available for this project. My marriage is not available for this project. My silence is not available for this project. The words left me cleanly, not shouted, not trembling. Mine. Samuel Reed stood. Westbridge will suspend review pending independent investigation. He said. The impact was immediate. Martin turned on him. Samuel, let's not overreact in public. Samuel's face did not change. Public misrepresentation occurred in public. The sentence landed harder than any insult could have. Journalists began speaking into phones. Investors stood. Patricia sat down as if her knees had failed. Caroline covered her mouth. Vanessa moved toward Julian. Julian, say something. He looked at her for the first time. There was no tenderness, no protection, only the cold realization that she had become expensive. You told me you contained it, he said. Vanessa flinched. I tried. You made invoices. You approved them. The microphone caught that. The room heard it. Julian closed his eyes. Mara leaned toward me. That's enough. Leave on the high ground. She was right. I placed the microphone back on its stand. Julian grabbed my wrist. The room saw. Irene moved from the side entrance. Mara's voice cut through the microphone before I could speak. Remove your hand, Mr. Vale. Julian looked down as if surprised to find his fingers around me. He let go. His voice broke. You can't end my life over one room. I looked at him. The man I had married. The man who had cried at my mother's memorial. The man who had given my suite away and called my dignity paper. No, I said, you did not lose your life over one room. You lost my life over what you thought I would accept. Then I walked off the stage. No one clapped. That would have made it cheaper. They simply moved aside at the ballroom doors. I looked back once. Julian stood under the enormous screen, trapped beneath his own timeline. Vanessa was crying now. But nobody went to comfort her. Patricia stared at her son as if seeing a stranger wearing family cufflinks. Martin was on his phone, already trying to salvage what public truth had ruined. The ocean suite glowed behind them in a frozen image of blue water and white sheets. The room that had been denied to me had become the room they could not escape outside. The hotel corridor was cool and quiet. Mara walked beside me. You did it, she said. I shook my head. No, she looked at me. I started it. The morning after the banquet, my face was everywhere. Not the wedding photo, not the ring photo, not the carefully staged image of Julian offering reconciliation while I stood cold and unyielding. This time, the image was from the ballroom stage, me holding the microphone, Julian pale behind me. The screen showing the Ocean Suite reservation under Vanessa's name. The headlines corrected themselves with the desperation of outlets pretending they had not helped spread the first lie. Evelyn Hart reveals honeymoon suite scandal at Vale investor event. Vale Coastal launch suspended after public misrepresentation claims. Crow narrative group linked to smear campaign against Julian Vale's wife. Heartline Living terminates Vale association. Wife. They still used the word because headlines loved conflict. I sat at my kitchen counter with coffee and did not click most of them. Mara arrived at 8 with bagels, legal pads, and the expression of a woman who had slept 4 hours and considered that sufficient. Before you ask, she said, dropping the bag on the counter. Yes, the internet is temporarily on your side. No, we do not trust it. Yes, Julian's team wants emergency mediation. No, we are not rushing. I took a bagel. Good morning to you too. It is a good morning. Their counsel sent panic in PDF form. She pulled out documents. The first was from Vale Legal. They denied wrongdoing while requesting constructive resolution. The second was from Westbridge, formally suspending investment review pending independent investigation. The third was from Crow Narrative Group's board, announcing Vanessa had been placed on administrative leave. Administrative leave, I asked. For rich people, that's a slap with stationery, but it's a start. What about Lena? Mara smiled. Her employer suddenly remembered she is a valued staff member. Her schedule was restored. They offered her a transfer if she wants one. Relief moved through me so hard I had to grip the coffee mug. Good. Yes, also, she watched the clip. Is she okay? She said seeing the truth on the screen made her feel less crazy. I closed my eyes briefly. Less crazy, that was what Julian had tried to steal from both of us. The certainty of what we had seen. My phone buzzed. Julian, I let it go. Then a message. Julian, please, just answer once. Another. Julian, my mother hasn't left her room. Another. Julian, Vanessa lied to me too. I stared at that one. Mara saw my face. What? I showed her. She snorted. Ah, yes. The ancient defense. The mistress betrayed me while helping me betray you. I put the phone down at 10. We went to the bank. The conference room smelled like polished wood and institutional caution. 2 bank officers sat across from me with printed records. Mara sat at my right. Grace Hart, my mother's former assistant, sat at my left because she had asked to come, and because when Grace asked for something in that tone, people made room. Grace was in her 60s, with silver curls, red glasses, and a handbag large enough to hold either knitting or incriminating files. With Grace, it was often both. One bank officer cleared his throat. Ms. Hart, our review confirms that the attempted acceleration did not complete. No funds left the Hart Legacy Trust. Good, Mara said, and the request. It was submitted through Vale Coastal Holdings Council portal using a packet referencing marital partnership distribution. Grace opened her handbag and removed a folder. I looked at her. What is that? Your mother's addendum, she said. My throat tightened. I thought all the trust documents were already with Mara. Most were. Grace slid the folder across the table. This one was sealed until marriage or attempted marital claim. Mara sat straighter. The bank officer looked nervous. I opened the folder. My mother's signature appeared at the bottom of the first page. Addendum C. Protective conditions regarding marriage, partnership, and legacy use. My eyes blurred for a second. I blinked hard. Grace touched my hand. She worried love would make you generous in ways grief had already made you tired. I read. The addendum stated that if any spouse, spouse's family, or spouse-controlled entity attempted to use my marital status, inheritance, family legacy, or emotional vulnerability to accelerate distributions without explicit beneficiary consent, all pending partnership distributions would be suspended for 12 months and reviewed by independent trustees. 12 months, not delayed. Suspended. Mara read over my shoulder and whispered, "Your mother was magnificent. She was paranoid." I whispered back, "Magnificently." The bank officers reviewed the addendum. Their expressions became even more cautious. "This confirms our suspension," one said. "It also requires notice to any third party relying on pending distributions." Mara said, "Yes, meaning Vale cannot tell investors the funds are forthcoming." "No," the officer said, "they cannot." Grace folded her hands. "And if they do," the officer swallowed, "that would be a material misrepresentation." The sentence felt like a door closing in a house I no longer had to live in. After the bank, we went to Mara's office for mediation prep. Julian's counsel had pushed for immediate settlement. Mara agreed to a preliminary call only if they first confirmed in writing that no claim would be made to compel trust distribution. They resisted for 2 hours, then Westbridge suspension became public. They confirmed at 3. Julian appeared on the video mediation call. He looked terrible, not romantically terrible, not tragic hero terrible, just exhausted, unshaven, and angry beneath the eyes. His lawyer sat beside him. Martin sat farther back, arms crossed. Patricia was not there. I sat in Mara's conference room with my camera on, spine straight, hands folded. Julian looked at me as if the screen were a locked window. "Evelyn," he said. Mara spoke first. All communications through counsel unless directly relevant, his lawyer cleared his throat. We're here to discuss a path that minimizes further damage to both parties. Mara smiled. My client did not misuse corporate funds, attempt unauthorized trust acceleration, coordinate a smear campaign, or publicly misrepresent an active authorization status at an investor event. So let's be precise about whose damage we are minimizing. Julian's lawyer looked pained. Martin leaned forward. We are prepared to acknowledge certain communication failures. Grace, who had insisted on attending silently, made a small disgusted sound. Mara said, try again. Julian's lawyer said, we can agree to mutual non-disparagement. No, confidentiality. No, limited confidentiality around financial terms. Possibly. Julian looked at me. Do you want me destroyed? I did not answer immediately. The question no longer had power. I want out, I said. His face shifted. You already left, he said. I left the hotel. I am ending the marriage. He flinched as if divorce were a surprise he had not spent weeks manufacturing. We've been married less than a month, he said. Yes, so you're just done. I leaned slightly toward the camera. Julian, I was done the moment you looked at me in that lobby and thought my dignity was negotiable. His jaw tightened. People say things under pressure. People reveal things under pressure. Martin said, this is unproductive. Mara said, agreed. Terms. Evelyn retains all heart assets. Vale makes no claim to trust distributions, brand value, foundation, connections, or inheritance. Vale reimburses the Vale Heart Honeymoon account for expenditures benefiting MS. Crow. Vale pays MS. Heart's legal fees tied to unauthorized trust activity and reputational response. Joint public statement. The parties are divorcing. Heartline Living is not affiliated with Vale Coastal Resort launch. Prior statements implying otherwise were inaccurate. Julian's lawyer looked as if he had bitten lemon. We cannot agree to inaccurate, he said. Mara looked delighted. Misleading, false, reckless. Choose your flavor. Martin snapped. We will not self-immolate. Grace said, you already held the match. Everyone looked at her. She smiled sweetly. Sorry, I thought we were speaking plainly. For the first time in days, I almost laughed. Julian rubbed both hands over his face. Evelyn, can we talk alone for 5 minutes? No, please, no. His voice cracked. I lost everything in one night. I looked at him through the screen. No, I said, you lost the belief that you could keep everything. He stared at me, then he said quietly, I did love you. I believed him. That was the worst part. He had loved me in the way some people loved houses they did not build. He liked the warmth, the view, the status of the address. He loved what shelter felt like when someone else maintained it, but he had not loved me enough to protect me from his appetite. I know, I said. His eyes lifted, sudden hope breaking through. I ended it before it could grow, but your love required me to accept humiliation as a cost of admission. I decline. Mara's pen paused. Julian closed his eyes after that. The call became lawyers and numbers. It lasted 3 hours. By the end, preliminary terms were not final, but the shape was clear. Divorce, no claim on heart assets, reimbursement, correction statement, cooperation with internal investigations, Vanessa named separately in potential civil claims if she continued public defamation. When the call ended, I sat very still. Mara closed her laptop. You held up well. I feel empty. That is also allowed. Grace poured tea from a thermos she had brought because she trusted no office beverage. Empty can be useful, she said. It means there is finally room. I looked at her. She patted my hand. Your mother would be furious, I know, and proud. That broke me more gently than the crying on the kitchen floor. Tears came, but quietly. Grace held my hand. Mara pretended to study a document while her own eyes shone. At 7, I went home. Julian was waiting outside my building. No cameras, no Patricia, no Vanessa, no handkerchief, just Julian in the cold, holding something small in his palm, my wedding ring. I stopped beneath the awning. Irene is 5 minutes away, I said. I know. His voice was hoarse. I'm not here to scare you. You still did. Pain moved across his face. I'm sorry, he said. The words stood between us, simple. Late. I waited. He looked down at the ring. I kept thinking if you put it back on, we could slow down, not fix everything. Just slow down. No, his fingers closed around it. I don't know who I am if this ends. That is not a reason for me to stay. I know. He said it like he might actually mean it. For a moment, I saw the man under the veil training, the boy raised to win rooms, the husband who had confused possession with partnership because everyone around him rewarded the confusion. I felt pity, not longing. Pity is quieter than love. It does not reach for the door. Julian stepped closer, then stopped himself. Was there any moment, he asked, when I could have fixed it? I thought about lying. A clean no would hurt less. But I had not fought this hard to become careless with truth. Yes, I said, in the lobby. You could have turned to Vanessa and told her to leave my suite. You could have apologized before you knew I had evidence. You could have chosen me when choosing me cost you something. He swallowed. But you didn't. No, he whispered, I didn't. I held out my hand, palm up. Hope flared again. Poor, stubborn hope. He placed the ring in my palm. I closed my fingers around it. Then I dropped it into the small evidence envelope Mara had given me earlier and sealed it. Julian stared. I'm not taking it back, I said. I'm preserving the final prop. His face crumpled for 1 second before he turned away. I walked inside before pity could become a chain that night. I slept 6 hours without dreaming of the ocean suite. When I woke, dawn was grey at the windows. My phone had one new message from Mara, final signing Friday, if he doesn't stall, and below it, from Julian. I understand now that it was never one room. I read the message, then I archived it. Understanding was not restoration. The final signing took place in a conference room with no flowers. I was grateful for that. No white roses, no velvet chairs, no handkerchief folded in a mother's lap, just a long table, water glasses, legal pads, and the kind of neutral art hotels used when they wanted walls to exist without opinions. Julian arrived 10 minutes late. He wore a dark suit and no tie. His face looked thinner. Patricia did not come. Martin did not come. His lawyer did. That mattered. It meant the family had stopped staging unity and started managing liability. Vanessa was already gone from Crow Narrative Group by then. Officially, she had resigned to pursue independent opportunities. Unofficially, her largest clients had paused contracts after the banquet footage made the phrase honeymoon narrative containment a minor internet joke. She sent me one email through counsel, claiming she had been pressured by Julian and Martin. Mara replied with 6 attachments and the sentence, MS. Crow may wish to reconsider the wisdom of written fiction. Vanessa did not write again. Lena transferred to a different resort and received a settlement she was not allowed to discuss. She sent me a postcard 2 weeks later with only one line, the new desk faces the ocean. I kept it on my refrigerator. Patricia had tried once more. A letter. Handwritten, Evelyn, I spoke from fear. I see now that harm was done. I hope one day we may talk as women, not adversaries. Patricia, I did not answer. Maybe she did see. Maybe she saw only that fear had failed as strategy. Either way, I had learned that access to me was not owed to anyone who discovered remorse after consequences. Martin resigned as interim chair of the resort launch committee pending investigation. Samuel Reed did not return Westbridge to the deal. Another investor group offered worse terms. Vale Coastal Holdings accepted because they had no better choice. Julian remained wealthy by most standards. He was not ruined in the fairytale way people wanted villains ruined. He still had suits, lawyers, and a family name that opened some doors, but he had lost the doors he thought were guaranteed. My door, my trust, my mother's legacy, my silence, my willingness to stand beside him and make his lies look like stability. That was enough. In the conference room, the lawyers reviewed the final terms: divorce petition uncontested, no claim to Hart assets, full reimbursement of all honeymoon account charges tied to Vanessa Crow, contribution to my legal fees, written correction sent to Westbridge, Heartline Living, and the Foundation Board, mutual property release, non-disparagement limited to false statements, not truthful testimony, permanent revocation of Vale's authorization to use my name, likeness, marital status, mother's story, or Heartline design materials. Julian signed first. His hand hesitated above the line. I watched without helping him. He signed. The pen made a small scratching sound. Then the document came to me. Evelyn Hart, not Vale Hart. I signed. There was no orchestra, no judge striking a gavel, no dramatic gasp, just ink drying on paper while a marriage that had been called paper became paper again. This time in my favor. Mara placed a hand lightly on my shoulder. Julian's lawyer gathered his copies. We will file today, he said. Mara nodded. We will. Confirm receipt. The lawyers stood. Julian did not. He looked at me across the table. Can I have 5 minutes? Mara looked at me. I said, 2. With Mara present, a faint smile touched his mouth. Not happy, not bitter, almost respectful, fair. The lawyers left except Mara, who moved to the window and became very interested in the skyline. Julian folded his hands on the table. I went back, he said, to the resort. He nodded. After the banquet, I thought if I stood in the lobby, I'd understand. What you saw? I said nothing. The wall still has the Vale name. The front desk is exactly the same. Lena's not there anymore. She transferred. I know. He looked down. I stood where you stood. I tried to imagine hearing my wife tell another man he mattered more than me. His voice broke. I couldn't. The words entered me softly. Too late to change anything. Still human enough to hurt. I'm sorry, he said. Not because I lost the deal. Not because everyone saw. I mean, yes, I hated that. But I'm sorry because I made you stand there and question whether your own pain counted. My throat tightened despite myself. Mara stayed at the window. Julian continued. Vanessa wanted status. My father wanted capital. My mother wanted control. I wanted all of it to somehow fit around you without me having to choose. And when you forced the choice, I punished you for showing me who I was. I looked at him for a long moment. There are apologies that ask for a door. This one did not. Maybe that was why I could receive it. Thank you for saying it. His eyes lifted. That's all. That is more than I thought you would manage. He laughed once, broken and quiet. Do you hate me? He asked. I considered it. No. He looked almost relieved. Then I finished. I don't trust you. I don't want you. I don't feel married to you. But I don't hate you. Relief died. But not cruelly. He nodded. I suppose I earned that. Yes. He reached into his jacket. For a second, old fear moved through me. Then he pulled out a small envelope and slid it across the table. Mara turned instantly. Julian lifted both hands. Not a document to sign, just a letter. Read it or don't. It's not a request. I did not touch it at first. What is it? A goodbye I should have been decent enough to give without needing one back. I looked at Mara. She gave the smallest shrug. My choice. I picked up the envelope. No seal. No trap. Julian stood at the door. He turned back. Evelyn. Yes, before dawn, when you left, I thought you were overreacting. He swallowed. Now I think it was the first honest thing either of us did. Then he left. Mara waited until the door closed. Are you okay? No. Good answer. I looked at the envelope. Are you going to read it? Not today. She smiled. Even better answer. We filed. The legal process would still take time, but the terms were set. The marriage was no longer a living argument. It was paperwork moving through channels. That evening, I went to my apartment and packed one suitcase. Not because I was running, not because I needed to disappear, because my mother had left me a small house on the coast 2 hours north, and for months I had avoided it. She had loved that house. I had been afraid grief would be louder there. Now I wanted to hear what remained when nobody was asking me to perform. Before sunrise the next morning, I drove out of the city. Dawn had not broken when I crossed the bridge. The highway was nearly empty. My suitcase sat in the back seat. On the passenger seat were 3 things: my mother's note, Lena's postcard, and the sealed envelope from Julian. The wedding ring was not there. It was in Mara's evidence file until the divorce finalized, after which I planned to sell it and fund 3 Heart Foundation scholarships under a new category, Safe Rooms Grant, for students who needed not just tuition, but rent, transportation, childcare, emergency relocation, rooms of their own, doors with locks, space to become themselves. The coast appeared slowly, first as smell, then as grey light, then as a line of water beyond winter grass. My mother's house was small, cedar shingled, and stubborn against the wind. I parked in the gravel drive and sat for a moment with both hands on the steering wheel. The last time I came here, Julian came with me. He had stood on the porch and said it was charming but impractical, too far from the city, too exposed to weather, too sentimental. I had almost agreed. Now I unlocked the door. The air inside was cold, dust floated in the dim light. The furniture was covered in white sheets, the kitchen window faced the water, a gull cried somewhere beyond the dunes. I turned on the heat, opened the curtains, made coffee in an old French press my mother had refused to replace. Then I carried the sealed envelope from Julian to the porch. The sky was lifting from grey to pale blue. I opened it. His letter was short. Evelyn, I wanted marriage to make me better without requiring me to become honest. That was unfair to you. I do not ask you to remember me kindly. I only hope one day the memory of me does not make you question your own judgment. You were right to leave, Julian. I read it twice, then I folded it carefully. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, not a new beginning for us, a record that somewhere, beneath the wreckage, he had finally told the truth without asking to profit from it. I went inside, placed the letter in a drawer, and closed it. My phone buzzed. Mara, filing confirmed. You are officially in process, Grace. Your mother would like the curtains open. Lena, first morning at the new desk. Ocean looks fake but in a good way. I smiled. Then one more message arrived. Julian, I won't contact you again unless through counsel. I hope the house is peaceful. I looked out at the water for a long time. I did not answer. Then I typed one sentence. It is. I did not send more. I set the phone down and walked to the porch with my coffee. The sun lifted over the water. No champagne, no sweet, no husband beside me, no family name shining on marble. Behind a desk, just wind, salt, cedar boards under my bare feet, my own name on the deed, my own key in my hand. The first time I left before dawn, I had been escaping a room where my marriage died. This time, dawn found me standing still, not abandoned, not waiting home.